Everybody.
Hey there.
Hello.
The beloved Spinecrackers audience.
We welcome you to yet another episode. Episode what? What number is this?
33, maybe? Let me double check.
Damn.
Hold on.
That's a lucky number.
This is
in
gonna
Lord of the
be... Is it? What?
Is it?
Is that true?
Well, it's like the age that if you're a hobby and you turn 33, it's the age of. I guess it's not lucky. It's just like the age of like coming into your adulthood, I think.
Yeah, this is episode 33, dude. So we're lucky hobbits.
Great.
Frodo's.
Wait, is so?
I also
how old? What's the
am
Hobbit?
33.
I'm 33 too.
So
Me too.
Oh shit.
we're also lucky hobbits. I guess I'm gonna open this lager then.
Are we? Cheers.
Cheers.
Are we? We're all. I don't know about you all, but I'm perfectly appropriately tipsy for the book we're gonna be reviewing this evening and discussing.
Yes. I'm about to ingest
Really?
the same things that killed the writer of this book.
And
Hold on 1 sec.
his character.
I'm drinking milk, actually.
Ew. Who drinks fucking milk?
It's lactose free.
Drinking
'Cause
milk is fucking canceled.
I like milk.
No, God, I can't.
Yeah, milk's not bad. It's just not like a tall glass of milk to just
No.
like coat
I got
your
it in a
tongue and
mug.
throat
It's a
before you
little-
Ew,
speak.
why do you have to say that?
It's a little Maxwell House mug, tiny mug.
Paul, you gotta
Okay.
be drinking a cocktail for this book, man.
I have
Yeah,
one
so
beer
Roaring
over
20s.
here that I'm gonna meander mosey over to eventually.
First thing I want to say before I forget is that we love you. You're the best audience in the world, and we would love it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Patreon if you're into that. And follow our
Yes.
Instagram, patreon.com/spinecrackers, youtube.com/spinecrackers, Instagram.
Thank you.
Spinecrackers. I always forget and say it like 2.5 hours into the goddamn show.
Yeah, it's no good. No one's gonna care.
No one's gonna care or listen.
And if
that
you do
far.
a quick shopkeeping spiel right at the top,
Yep.
we've done all the research. We've polished this thing, like we keep saying, until
That's right.
you can see your face in it.
What? Oh,
We know
God.
everything, and now we're guaranteed success because we've read all the rules.
That's right. That's right. The podcast or podcaster handbook.
Yeah.
What's up?
How to podcast for dummies.
How to podcast for complete fucking incel losers.
So no podcasting.
I would write that book.
Which one?
How to podcast for incel losers.
Really? You think they need that help? That help in that one
They
realm?
don't. Well, they might. They probably need help, but they don't need the encouragement. That's for
My
sure.
favorite are like my favorite things are like because podcasting is such like a ubiquitous medium that like the threshold to entry is so low, but there's still these like weird grifters out there that like they do podcasts and like will do like informational videos about like here's how you get started to make sure your podcast is the best it can possibly be.
I get emails from Patreon all the time about seminars and like, oh, we're gonna have. I mean, they have, I don't know who's like the top Patreon people anymore, but it's, like Chapo and whatever. It's like, oh, we're going to have this person from this top Patreon thing talking about how to make your Patreon successful. I'm like, this is awful.
How many people, I guess, I mean, I don't know enough. Like, it's probably a lot. I know that like there's like places like Gimlet Studio and stuff that do like the super like fucking Stereo Lab or Radio Lab rather, like NPR, like music bumpers,
right?
Kind of high production, but then like some of the best paid ones are like just fucking, it's like Come Town. It's like
Right.
Yeah.
their audio is breaking all the time, and they're just actively trying to do a bad job because that's the jokes, and so it's
And
like
that's the yeah. I mean, that's the thing is there's no one way. Whatever. This is maybe a separate episode, but yeah, there's no one way to do all this, to do any of this shit, right?
a lot of ways to skin a cat.
That's right. There's a lot of ways to make money online.
Yeah, maybe we should try doing a.
Well,
Maybe we should try doing a podcast someday. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, dude.
If you want us
Please.
Spinecrackers OnlyFans, let us know. We can see what we
God.
can do.
I'll do
It'll just
like
be close-ups of our nips.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
shots
I mean
only.
shit. And dicks.
I let's be real.
Or buttholes, whatever.
Our buttholes.
Or knees or feet.
And the
It'll
game
be
is
so
you have to
close
guess whose
up.
it is.
Yeah, it'll be so close up that like it'll be a sort of indistinguishable patch of flesh, and you.
I
Have to
did
guess.
one of my favorite jokes that I did when I was like 15 or whatever, or 16, is I had to do a PowerPoint presentation in high school.
Oh, I know this. Joke.
And I just I made all the backgrounds just zoomed in pictures of porn, but like so close, it was just a color.
Yeah.
And I thought it
Wow,
was so
you're-
funny. I thought it was the funniest thing ever at the time.
I saw somebody. I think it was
Tyler
I
Durden
saw,
shit.
Yes, kind of.
I'm the Joker, dude. I'm
You are the Joker.
I'm the 8th grade Spanish Joker.
Tyler Joker.
I had a friend do that.
I'm not
too,
Spanish. I mean, in Spanish class.
In
You know what I
Spanish
mean?
class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she did that as well, that joke, and then there was like a brief moment where one of the slides like rendered quite really quick.
Oh God.
So it was just it was not the unblown up, just like to fit the frame, like still pornographic still. Just for
Yikes.
like a half a second.
Oof.
Yeah, and it was just like a person
Playing with
being,
fire.
like, just getting fisted just for like a half of a second,
God.
and then it was like, whoop. She was like, anyway.
Now let's talk
Christopher
about the
Columbus.
Assyrian Empire.
Yeah. They called it the cradle of civilization.
God.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of civilization,
Beautifully done.
Nice.
the book. You guys want to talk about the book for the week?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a hitter, as they might say. This is a heavyweight.
We said
It's a
we were
home run.
doing we were doing homework books for a couple, and this is definitely one of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Paul,
It
would
was
you like
partially
to-
chosen as a joke,
That is true.
I think,
It's-
because we were referencing it a lot throughout the podcast. How like it's the book that when you think about a fiction book, I feel like this one pops up into my mind the first time.
It's like
Great
a word
Gatsby.
association. Hey, fiction.
Great Gatsby.
Great Gatsby.
Which is what it is.
Which is what it is. That's the book,
Yeah.
by the way. That was the big reveal. We're talking
This
about.
is one of those. You're right, Paul. It's one of those books that, like, if someone's like, The Great Gatsby is my favorite book, it's a decent % chance that they stopped reading after high school.
In high school.
Like,
Yeah.
that's sort
Well-
of like the judgment you pass on them for the
right,
most part.
right.
Yeah.
Which is why it's a joke.
Well, I think
But-
Carly on YouTube made this point talking about The Great Gatsby. Like, if someone says The Great Gatsby is their favorite book, it's either they are like a literature PhD or it's a huge red flag. It's one of those two things. Like, it's
That's
like,
true, that's
there's
true.
no in between. Like, if they say The Great Gatsby is my favorite book, either that's the only book they remember reading ever, or they're going to talk to you about it literally forever, and they wrote their dissertation on it.
Well, hopefully
Which is
we can
Matt's
be that in
experience.
between.
Matt,
My
I kind of want
experience?
you to talk about your high school experience with this book.
Well, we're not going to be in between. I mean, I wouldn't say it's my favorite book.
I just mean we're going to exist in that nether realm between, like, it's my life's work to research every sentence,
Right.
and the guy
Read
who's just,
Fitzgerald's
like,
letters and shit.
Yeah, and then the guy who just like read in high school and then was like, thank God I'm done. No, my experience was also just like in high school, I had to read this book. I'm sure a lot of listeners did. And I had spoken a little bit about this in the like miscellaneous chat But yeah, I just had a professor who this was his favorite book. He was more, I don't know. Luther likes it too.
That's my dog's name.
He just like he was just like, this is my favorite book. He's like, the great American novel cannot be written because it already has been, and it's this, and it's the Great Gatsby. And he was just like the biggest fan. And he proceeded to ruin my reading experience of the book, and I think everyone in the classes by making us stop every line and just savor the genius of like Fitzgerald's perfectly wrought turns of phrase and
Ring
like
the
incisive satirical observations on the nature of 20s America and stuff. It's like, it was just like agonizing, and it fucked it up for me for a long time, and I'm so glad to have reread it, because it's been long enough, and it's now a very different thing.
It's one of those texts, right, where like I had a professor not in high school but in college who was a Hemingway scholar, and it was the same thing, and he just wanted to be Hemingway so bad, and would just like one of those, like, read a phrase and just like let it linger for like 3 minutes of total silence in the classroom, and just like, and then just be and then just be like, damn, am I right? It was kind of reminiscent of Clifford Lee Sargent's book review style, but
sentences swirl around in your mouth like
it does ruin it. It does ruin a lot of those texts, I think, whether it's Gatsby or Hemingway or whatever.
Well, because it's not really anything, It's like a guy liking it in front of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
It's a guy standing and reading a sentence and liking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just liking these guys who all drank themselves to death.
Hey, listen. This
no hate.
No judgment.
This podcast will not fucking be on record shaming drinking yourself to death.
No. But do it happily, unlike these people, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. It is cringe. If you think it's like cool and makes you like dark and interesting, it's cringe.
That's true. Yeah, you're very boring and normal and dumb.
Yeah, and the worst.
But
so we're talking about
just enjoy it and just go ahead and do it.
That's right.
That's all we're saying.
So if you haven't gathered, we're talking about The Great Gatsby today by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Here's a fun question that'll give people a sense of how much I know about this book. What the hell does the F stand for? An F, Scott? Anyone know?
I think it's made up.
That's a funny first question. Fuck.
No one knows. No one knows. I mean, no. It's like, I bet if you ask people on the street, like 90% of people wouldn't know.
I'm just going to say Francis.
Let's guess.
I'm going to say Foster. Oh, it's Francis?
I'm going to say
it's Francis.
I'm going to say fuck.
Fuck Scott. That would be great.
Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald.
Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald. Now,
Key,
Francis Scott
like
Key is
K-E-Y?
another person, right? They wrote the national anthem. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he's like direct. I think he's like
or no
3. He did. I think he's like or the Star Spangled Banner or something.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Wrote the Star Spangled Banner. Yeah.
I think he's several orders of remove from that person, but there is some relation there. Yeah.
They're actually related?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, shit. Well, he's at least named after him, clearly.
Oh, yes, we get to hear Luther drinking.
Yeah, you guys love that, don't you?
Giant tongue.
Clop, clop, lop, lop, slop, slop.
So, Paul, you actually picked this book, right? And you said it was kind of a joke, but so why'd you pick it?
I picked it because I hadn't read it since high school. My experience with it in high school was actually like I barely read it because I was a bad student. So I think I read maybe half of it. And what I did read, I completely, almost totally forgot. So
like most
I had
high
this
school
different texts. Yeah, it was. I think it's actually a really good time to pick this book up again and read it at this age.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was basically why I picked. I mean, I think I picked it just to pick a more classic title because we've been doing that, here and there. I mean, last week was a pretty classic title too, so we're kind of going through them, and we're gonna pick Moby Dick eventually.
Maybe eventually.
Eventually,
yeah.
But yeah, that was basically it. I mean, it was mostly a joke, but it didn't end up being a joke. It's a good book.
I remember reading it in high school, and I had, I like if you asked me before I read this again now. So this is the first time any of us have read this since high school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you asked me about it a month ago or whatever before I started reading it again, I probably could have told you like one or two things that happened and like one character. I think I remember Nick Carraway. I remember the character's name, but like I didn't.
I thought his name was Jack Kerouac.
That would have been a fun twist.
I thought it was Jack Reacher. But yeah, I didn't remember much about the book, and it certainly didn't stick with me, which I think speaks to, and maybe we'll talk about this later, but speaks to the kind of like failure of pedagogy in the way this book is taught to most kids in high school, which Matt, I think, described accurately earlier.
Yeah. It's weird because I don't think that's even most high school teachers' approach. This guy, on paper, it seemed like he maybe, it seems like he could have imparted his love of the book onto somebody. He was like genuinely fucking amped to talk about The Great Gatsby, and I think that's not true of probably a lot of other just like English teachers.
Yeah,
I
that's
imagine,
true.
Who just have
that's
a
true.
curriculum to get through. Chosen by I don't even know how it gets chosen. Maybe you do, Gabe.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast.
A dark evil board
Yeah.
of just mysterious people,
State legislators, and
yeah.
I think it might speak a little bit to the books that stuck with me the most in high school were like Catcher in the Rye, which I still like, and A Separate Piece.
Classic.
But I mean, I would actually like to read that one on the pod. I haven't read that one since high school.
Yeah, sure.
But it might.
Well, I'm just going to call you out publicly, Paul. You're the only one who hasn't filled in all your upcoming picks. So
this is true.
Wow.
I haven't
just
done
saying.
it. Moby Dick. Moby Dick's my next one.
Next week we're gonna do Moby Dick.
Yeah, next week. I'm boosting it up. I'm getting 2 in a row. But I think it might speak a little bit to just the stories that stuck with me in high school were more equitable to our age at the time.
They're high school,
like coming of age. And a book like The Mountain Lion, I think we should have read in high school too.
It's way better than any book we read in high school.
Yeah.
But I mean, The Great Gatsby deals with people that are kind of our age.
Now,
I feel like it
younger,
resonated.
really.
Yeah.
Younger than we are now, really.
Yeah, but I think it's like a better age to read this book. Possibly.
Which was at the time, like if you adjust for like lifespan and stuff, probably they would be older than us. Like people back then died younger.
And Fitzgerald certainly died younger.
Well, yeah.
So if you adjust for his lifespan, he was like middle aged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he wrote this book at what? Like, what age? Anyone know? Early 30s, late 20s? Like,
this is what, book number 3?
Yeah, I think so. Because it was, the fucking whatever it was. Not the quick. It was,
but This Side of Paradise,
yeah.
and then
Tender as the Night, right? Was that before or after this? No. Beautiful and the Damned.
Beautiful and the Damned.
Yeah. I think it goes in that order. I think it goes This Side of Paradise, Beautiful and the Damned, Great Gatsby, Tender as the Night, and then that was it. He was writing another one when he died.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he died of what? Liver something? He died from drinking?
Heart attack? No. I think
it was a heart attack. Yeah, but it was alcoholism contributed apparently.
Yeah, I'm sure he was comorbid with a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So he had achieved fame super young. He was 24 and he wrote it was This Side of Paradise, right?
Yeah.
And that was basically like I read that one in college. That one's pretty good, but like yeah, it's like it's just his kind of life story, thinly veiled.
Right.
And so he was like mega famous and immediately kind of like started boozing it up and like married Zelda rather, not somebody.
Wow, dude, problematic.
Holy shit. Whoops, sorry everybody. Yeah, I don't know, like The Beautiful and the Damned was also super popular, and like kind of like at that point he was established. And then I guess this book was some sort of turning point. I don't know. I got the impression that like he worked really hard on this one, and then I don't know. Like
it went through a long
hit.
sort of editing process, right?
Yeah, he wrote something and then scrapped it almost completely.
Yeah.
Originally.
Yes, that's right. He had started the novel and then kind of got rid of it and almost started over, but kept some of the ideas, I guess.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can really tell because, like, you know, it's fairly short, and like, you know, one of the things that gets levied against it is that it's like overwritten or somehow overplotted or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it moves too precisely. So, I don't know. This was some reviewers' assessment of other reviewers' reactions to the book that were negative at the time. Was like, and in like currently, like, it's just everything. It's like it just moves a little too conveniently, and everyone's kind of like, you know, an archetypal or like, you know, just sort of like a symbolic part of the whole like American tapestry, and they all serve their little function, and it ends too neatly or something, which I don't know. I don't agree with that, or it made the book to me like very good as opposed to
It's a weird. That's a weird critique to make of a novel, like that. It's just I don't know, that the plot's too tight, or I don't know. It's a weird, like, I don't know. It feels like a weird critique.
Yeah, I know. It's just like it feels like they're saying it's too good.
Yeah,
they're like, whoa, this thing hangs together really well. Ugh.
It's like, oh god, I wish there were like 30 pages in there that were totally pointless. Like I really wish that. Like,
that's what it sounds like they're asking for.
Stupid.
Yeah, I need that human mistake in there or whatever.
Right.
False step.
Yeah. So maybe we should. I guess we maybe should start with like a question that I think is actually kind of complicated, which is what is this book about? We were just talking about the plot, like. What is the plot of this book?
You mean not just the beat by beat that we're going to go through?
Not the beat by beat, but like, yeah, what happens? Big sort of strokes.
Well, I mean, we definitely shouldn't go plot by plot because it's such a famous book. But I mean, basically,
Spoiler alert.
Nick Carraway moves to West Egg, Long Island, and he's a Midwesterner. And he moves next to Gatsby, and he's like a mysterious dude who has a bunch of like parties.
And Carraway's poor, not poor, but not he's lower middle class, up middle class, whatever. But Gatsby's
I was actually a little bit confused by that, because there's a line in there that says like he's kind of poor, but he obviously like hangs with the freaking yacht club people all the time, and he's like the grandson of someone who's was super wealthy. I thought it was more like on a scale. Like he's not as wealthy as some of the people he hangs out with, but he's like fine.
Yeah,
it's relative. His house is like a quarter of the size of Gatsby's or something,
right?
Or even smaller.
Less probably.
But he still has
probably like 4,000 square feet.
Servant. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's waterfront, and it's just like that weird period where like people are poor, but they still have like handmaids and stuff, and like. Yeah, so he's just sort of relatively poor, right? And he's just like this, he's the sort of narrator. He's just the kind of eyeballs on the scene for the whole book, basically.
Right. Yeah.
You don't ever, like, leave his perspective.
Nope.
No.
So, yeah.
And there's moments where where he refers to himself as also the writer of the book, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like, there are moments where he's like, as I'm writing this, I'm remembering, or... looking back as I write this or whatever. So it's almost like which I feel like doesn't get talked about a lot, in at least in my kind of like hearing people talk about the book, is that Carraway is both the sort of narrator, but also it is suggested at least that he is the author of the text that we're currently reading, and there's no like discussion of how we got it, or if it's his like just notes, or if he's trying to write a book about Gatsby, or what. We don't really know what this text is, I guess.
Well, I recently met a dude who was literally like, great, oh dude, Gatsby, that's my favorite book, because I had it out, And
drinking in a bar like a cringe lord.
And you just got up and
assume.
left, or
no, this is, I won't name names, but this is somebody I had to deal with for too long.
Okay,
a weekend ago. Just fits perfectly with this motherfucker. And his observation about the book is also super in like keeping with the the whole like douchey dumb persona, faux smart guy. And he was just like, yeah, Gatsby, like, did you ever think about this? Caraway and Gatsby, they're the same guy.
Oh,
and,
God.
Oh, what the fuck?
And he was just like, it's Fight Club. He said it was Fight Club.
Shut up, dude. He didn't say that.
He literally said that. He said, it's this Fight Club plot.
Wow.
What do you guys think about that? Is that food for thought, huh? What do you chew on that for a little bit?
Whew, that's got to be one of the dummest takes I've ever heard on any book.
Yeah. I wish I heard it in person. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I was just in awe at him saying that to me.
Gatsby's Fight Club.
Yeah, so that So Gabe, that's a pretty interesting
come on the
observation on what
pod.
you were describing. No one talking about Caraway as a as a guy who through his eyes only we're seeing the thing.
Jesus.
Well, what did you think of Caraway as a character? I mean, I generally thought him as the most everyman character I've ever read. Or he like doesn't really have that much of a character. He's kind of just like he's there for us to take us on the story, but there's really not much to him. He's just kind of like a nice guy, and the people like him around in the social circles, and Gatsby ends up liking him. But I didn't think there was much to him, which wasn't really an issue for me. But
yeah, I don't think it's, to my mind, the easier answer is just like Fitzgerald a bit seems to be writing through his like whatever he's experiencing at the moment. He tends to like transmute that into a novel. Like each novel pertains to like can be directly lined up to some part of his life or experience. So
I mean I think there's a lot of kind of parallels between Fitzgerald and Caraway, right? Like the setting of the book is fictional. The East and West Egg of Long Island those don't exist. But Fitzgerald, like,
for instance,
did live on Long Island, right? At
and
one point in his life,
St. Paul, Minnesota.
And he was in the Army, and Caraway was in the Army, et cetera, et cetera.
Why would he change the name, do you think, of the North and South Fork of Long Island?
Because I think for him this is my take. I think for him at the time, and this is kind of speculative, I guess, but I think that for him, what he was concerned with at the time were, and we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, when we get more into the plot of the book, but was the sort of cultural and class divide in America among the basically middle class to upper middle class. And obviously we could talk about all the blind spots in the book about like race and like poverty and blah 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 blah, but I think for him, geographically, nowadays we think about North and South sort of being like a big kind of cultural, economic, historical divide in this country, and we use terms like the global South and the global North to talk about global economic inequality and so on and so forth. I think for Fitzgerald at the time, it was a divide between the East, as in the which we still have a little bit these days. We hear people use phrases like the coastal elite to refer to, say, East Coast and California, basically. Right. But I think Fitzgerald was kind of sort of tapping into that a little bit. He was more interested in the East Coast sort of elite, kind of old money people versus, for lack of a better term, the real America. What he calls the Middle West, right?
Right. Yeah. Flyover. That's okay. That brings a lot more to it than I was just like, he was probably just trying not to, he's probably just barely trying to get away from just saying names and places of people that he knew.
I mean, that's probably part of it too.
And just plausible deniability that he's not just absolutely gossiping about, various people that he knew in real life. But it's probably both, right?
The Great Gatsby.
What?
What is that
The Great
joke?
Gatsby.
even?
What do you?
Oh, the Great Gatsby.
Oh, okay. You didn't say that before.
I had milk on my tongue.
You
Oh,
blundered.
God,
Ew,
milk.
God, don't talk about the milk anymore.
Milk
I
is
had milk
banned
tongue.
from this rest of this podcast.
What about the milk of human kindness?
Stop it.
Yeah, you don't like that either, do
Nope.
you? Milky.
So anyway,
Okay.
yeah, that's
Right.
my take on that.
That makes a lot of sense, because that is a theme that is further explored in the novel itself, as short as it
right,
is. You
Right.
know,
and that's
kind of.
like, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying that's Gatsby's. That's his chip on his shoulder. You know, basically.
Right. So in the novel, the East and the West eggs are basically, you know, the rich, the old money people, the family people,
Yeah.
they live on East Egg, and the new money people, the kind of like, you know, maybe they get their money from illicit sources, they're bootleggers, or they're, you know, whatever, new money. They live on West Egg, and it's sort of a, you know, it's a stupid term to use with respect to like where rich people live, but it's like viewed as, it's like ghettoized, right? It's like viewed as lesser than, it's viewed as kind of like, oh, these people are kind of just, you know, trash basically because they have money, but it's new money. It's not like whatever. It's not respectable people.
Right. And the time frame of the book is 23. Is it also 23? Like, or is it 25?
I actually don't. Let's see.
Because I wanted to draw.
So it
the
was
parallel
published in
between-
25, right?
Right. Okay.
I thought it was like 22.
I was just curious if it was the same as Mrs. Dalloway. I was just like, I find I liked having read both of those books back to back because, if they're not supposed to have taken place in the exact same year, they're like super close.
No, it is. It's set in 1922.
Amazing. Okay, so like a year before, and it's like the summer going into the fall, right?
Yes. So
So
the whole book
I-
takes place over the course of like a few months in the summer of 1922.
Yeah, I don't know you know, how much, you know, I'm gonna fully be able to extract from that, but it felt pertinent. Like it felt very much like we read a British book dealing with this basic time frame and the sort of cultural, you know, concerns of that region, and now this is like the American version of that, which is obviously very different.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's obviously it's very different, like you said, but it's concerned with a lot of similar stuff, kind of like, you know, national identity and kind of like the spirit of the country and kind of, you know, kind of changes between pre and post-war culture and all that stuff.
And just us having partied in the interim between wars, whereas, you know, England is like shaky and shell shocked and fucking traumatized and just trying to like you know, whatever.
Right.
What is it? Carry on.
Stiff upper lip,
fucking-
chap.
Right.
Which makes sense though too, just historically, because they were a lot, you know, England was a lot closer to the actual
Yeah.
Yes.
war,
Yes.
like geographically.
Yeah, they like actually
Were they
fought it.
bombed? Was like London bombed in World War I or World War II or both?
I think both.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
I think
terrible
the
with this kind
real
of shit.
I think the real deal started happening in World War II. That's like the real
Yeah.
gutting of London. But I think they were also bombed in World War One.
Any World War I podcasts out there, feel free to reach
Oh,
out.
too many.
Wait,
Too
wait.
many history podcasts.
No, I don't want
Not-
I don't want a generic history nerd. I want a specific World War I podcast.
Yeah, I want
I
someone
would
to drill
love if
down.
like 65-year-old dads that just love World War One, like 5 of them just talking about that on a podcast. That'd be awesome.
I know.
It could go either way.
Imagine
it could be
those
really
submarines.
cool, but then they could also just be like, in Bill O'Reilly's book.
Yeah, it's true.
They're just citing the most like stupid sources.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So,
I
yeah.
think my question. I have a question about. It's not going to be a good question, I don't think. But the you know, towards the, like almost the very end, it's blatantly revealed, even though you already knew that, like basically all the main characters are originally from the Midwest. So they're all
Yes.
none of the main characters, I don't think, are from, New England, New York area.
No, it's all Louisville, or no, not Louisville, St. Louis, right?
No, Louisville. So Jordan,
It is Louisville?
Yeah, Jordan Baker and Daisy,
Tom?
who is Caraway's cousin, are from
Right.
Louisville. Tom is from Chicago, and
Right.
Gatsby is from Minnesota, on some small town on the shore of the Great Lakes. So, spoiler alert: Gatsby's whole persona is fake.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
But I
Caraway,
guess my
Caraway is from. Do we ever know? Do we get a definite like city or something where Caraway is from?
I thought it was St. Paul,
Okay,
just like Fitzgerald, but
because he talks about at the very end of the book going back on a train when he decides to leave New York and move away from New York. He talks about going through Wisconsin, but I don't remember
Milwaukee.
if there's a definite like where he's actually from.
Minnesota, yeah.
Just Minnesota. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so
But I
once
guess
again,
my
yeah,
question is just like, what is
Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald like trying to say by having all the characters from the Midwest? Like,
I think
I'm not
like
totally
what Gabe
sure.
was saying before, like it's these people from this part of America now newly encroaching on like sort of the false promises that have already like sort of sown what they reaped or whatever, reap what they sowed before with the war and everything. Like starting to also take on the same quote unquote values and be infected with
And
the same,
vices.
right, the same American dream, which sort of encapsulates all of that and has turned sour. Gatsby being like basically the ultimate personification of it.
I think it's an interesting question, Paul, because one of the things that I was seeing when I was just, cursorily reading some of the academic literature, theoretical, criticism about the book, literary criticism, is that Gatsby is this character who never really fits in, right? Because he comes from these humble background, and everyone around him, the most sort of obvious person being Tom Buchanan, who's Daisy's husband, kind of like sniffs out on him, right? They're kind of like, you're not really like of us. Like you're here, you have money, but you're not a real kind of member of this social order. But all of them are not are Midwesterners, basically. And I never really thought about that. I think that's a really interesting point, because no one that we meet in the book, aside from maybe Wolfsheim, who is Gatsby's kind of corrupt, Jewish. Obviously, there's problems there in terms of the characterization, but who's his sort of corrupt, old school New York Jewish, associate. No one else that we meet in the book is actually from New York or even the East Coast. I don't know. I don't really know. Maybe this is just a sort of historical question. I don't know if a place like Louisville or some of those rich, sort of like mid-Atlantic cities, counted as the Northeast back then. Like, I don't know if Fitzgerald would have drawn that line that way in his mind. Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't think he did.
So I just don't know. I'm not sure. But none of them are from what we would think of now as the East Coast, like New England or anything like that.
Yeah, that is interesting. I didn't really think about that. Yeah, no one's just a straight up like WASP or just
No.
New England or a Brahmin or anything like that. They're
Not at all.
Yeah, from the middle.
Yeah, and one
West.
of because Gatsby is like unable to be assimilated. It's made to be such like a huge point and theme of the book, but by the end of it, I was like, well, did any of them really assimilate? Like, Nick goes back to the Midwest. Daisy and Tom are just like, you have to assume they're relatively miserable, at least deep down. And I forget what happens to Jordan.
I think Jordan she tells Nick at the end that she's getting married to someone, but that she's pissed that he kind of spurned her.
Yeah. But yeah, I just found it interesting that, like, there isn't any character that's like a vessel for the East, so to speak. It's more about like these characters' fights with their environment, and I think it's actually kind of interesting that we don't get like a direct person that, acts as some sort of like vessel for the environment. It's just the environment that they're battling with. Does that make sense?
The environment in,
in terms of just like where they are. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they're all in a way not of that space, originally, like where they're from.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess maybe the what is also drawn is like the more important difference just between money, having money to begin with versus scraping it together and becoming, nouveau riche, just that difference upon your brain.
Right.
I mean, like you said, I'm sure there's a lot of like America looked a lot different, especially the Midwest was a lot, I would assume, sparser and a little more rural than now. And places like Minnesota weren't popping.
And Fitzgerald writes about it like that. Like he talks about it as the land of like big green lawns and da-da-da-da-da. I don't have the passage, but...
Yeah, and just him just languishing and just sort of like, anxiously, like teaching himself a new word every day and like, eating right. Yeah.
And hooking up with an aging kind of gold rush multimillionaire and kind of like clawing his way up. I mean, one of the things that's interesting, so Gatsby's kind of origin story, when you finally figure out what it is that he was this poor kid like from Minnesota who saw this yacht dock on Lake Superior.
Yeah, I think
probably.
So.
Yeah.
One of the Great Lakes, and he's out there harvesting clams or whatever, and he like ultimately connects with the guy that owns the yacht, who's this rich, guy who made millions and millions of dollars on the gold rush and various kind of like precious metals in Montana and the far west. And I think like one of the things that's interesting is that Gatsby is presented in this book as a sort of like fraud because of that, right? But like today, I feel like that's much more idolized than having just old money and like your parents were rich and whatever. Now it's all about being scrappy and making connections and that. So in a way, it feels like the character of Gatsby kind of prefigures our modern ideals of wealth, if that makes sense.
Well, I don't know, but we just re-emphasize the whole like fucking. We've always loved entrepreneurs and stuff, but it's always been and they're great, but it's always been like a way to actually just couch this like really horrific, the grind set, like right,
yeah, I mean? Exactly. Gatsby was grinding, dude.
Gatsby was waking up and he was making Monday his bitch. Like that was basically Gary Vaynerchuk style, like. Ideas way before that was the thing you could just sort of see on TikTok or something.
Right.
But yeah, he was
definitely waking up and reading like Marcus Aurelius.
So. Probably.
Is Gatsby Ty Lopez?
Yo.
I don't know about this whole Gatsby's fucking Fight Club bullshit, but Gatsby might be Ty Lopez.
He might be Ty Lopez, and that's what I'll stand behind something like that. So yeah, you're right. I think it's true that he's actually like probably more laudable his actions were or are now to some people's minds in the 21st century, which I would say is probably just means things aren't great now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. I mean, because you even get these insights into Gatsby as a child later on in the book where, like, someone mentioned this, I think, already, but he's waking up in the morning, he has a to-do list for the day. He's like, I'm going to read 3 self-improvement books every month. I'm going to, like, et cetera, et cetera. It's like very, but it is. It's crazy because it's like a future-oriented satire of what we are doing now. which is this like rise and grind, self-improvement, fucking read these books and da 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 mindset. And I mean, I thought it was brilliant.
Well, I think the same promises have just been dangled for forever, and that's what makes this book something that like struck me as very salient now and really good. And I think it's a good satire in the sense that like it really calls out the very specific ways that the same shit has been sort of dangled like a carrot in front of people's noses forever and turned them monstrous.
Yeah. And the other thing is, Gatsby, he befriends this like aging precious metals baron, but he doesn't actually get any of his money. He's cheated out of it, but whatever. I'm not a lawyer, but this guy, what is implied to be the trophy wife of this guy, what's his name? Cody?
I forget.
I think it's Cody, something Cody. Takes all the money, including what was left to Gatsby by this guy, who he becomes essentially his assistant or whatever, his confidant.
Yeah.
And then Gatsby has to kind of rebuild, and we don't know like the nitty gritty details of how he does that, but it's implied that he's involved in bootlegging and potentially like gambling schemes. It's mentioned at one point that his Jewish associate in New York, Wolfsheim, had like fixed the World Series one year, right?
Yeah, the big 1919
right.
Chicago.
Was that
White Sox.
That was the Black Sox scandal?
I think it was were they called the Black Sox?
Well, no, they were called the White Sox, but it was the Black Sox because it was like, you know what I mean?
Black bad.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And that was one of those blows to the American cultural confidence.
Yes.
That whole scandal, which I think it's important he ties it into some real life, just like, oh shit, this is fabricated, this can be manipulated. And also Cody or whatever his name was, the kind of like Moneybags old guy with the trophy wife. I mean, in a couple ways, he just mirrors the trajectory that Gatsby is also going to take, which is that like, he came into a bunch of money. He a little more
Dan Cody
industriously and less illegally than Gatsby, but like he still seemed to be living in this like pleasure yacht, just sort of surrounded by people who were also just kind of like enjoying the fruits of his cash,
right? And
just like chilling on the yacht and like slowly strip mining him of all of all his value, and then eventually he dies and the wife just takes the rest. And he didn't seem happy either, but Gatsby was like, holy shit, this is like Noah's Ark and I'm being taken to
and that's who I want to be. That's who I want to become.
Man. Yeah.
And he has, at one point when Nick is going through his house, walking around, he sees it. That's like one of the only pictures that Gatsby has. Not his parents,
right.
not anyone he's related to, but Dan Cody.
Right. His like the dad he chose, blah
right.
blah.
His mentor, his business mentor.
And I think one of the things that makes Gatsby an interesting character is that, I mean, he's overall a very charismatic, interesting guy. But I think one of my favorite aspects about him is that, he wants all these things. He wants to live like a lavish lifestyle, but in the moment, day to day, he doesn't really drink. I don't think he drinks at all, really, right?
Yeah, it's implied
he doesn't
drink at all.
He throws these parties, but he doesn't really participate in them to a big way. Everything is just like an ornament to him. It's all about a facade, and he's constructed this life around himself that he doesn't seem to necessarily even want or enjoy. It's more just like he feels like he should be doing this with himself.
And I feel like one of the things that Fitzgerald does a really good job at in the book is describing Gatsby's kind of like nervous energy. Like he's constantly sort of like, thinking about what his next move should be, down to like posture, right? Like where do I lean? Where do I look? What's my head angle? Like all of this stuff. And it's so, I mean, again, I just keep going back to the fact that like people write books about that shit nowadays. Like people write books about like what should your posture be in a business meeting? Like how do you assert yourself as a fucking alpha dom, like business daddy? And like, what's your head? Where should your chin be? And all that shit. And Fitzgerald does such a good job of like breaking that down, and it's funny and it's sad when you know about Gatsby's sort of history, but it's also like, again, shit that we sort of like laud today and idolize.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of that scene in Always Sunny when Mac puts his neck up and Charlie's like, his neck's high. I trust him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's that exactly.
His neck is high.
I remember watching these YouTube videos of like how you can like hold your tongue a certain way to like morph your face over the course of 10 years if you start when you're 12 or something like that, which was incredibly fascinating to watch. And just like, it made me so sad. I was like, oh, all these people just want like their face to be different and they're going to hold their tongue a certain way for
Gatsby
years.
would do that.
Yes.
He would.
Gatsby would be the guy who would hold his tongue away that maybe would give him like a more like, prominent jawline or something for 10 years.
Gatsby would have Jordan Peterson's book next to his bedside.
That's 100% correct, dude.
He would.
His shoulders would be back. He would be standing up so straight.
He would pet dogs.
And it's funny because it's all in the like service of, ultimately, the pursuit of Daisy as, basically at the point that he finally reconnects a completely fictional character in his head. And basically, he's just trying to like rekindle an adolescent almost crush.
Yeah. So let's talk about this.
Maybe.
So right. So one of the only things that I think is true about Gatsby's personality is that he was in the war. That's real, right?
And he went to Oxford. Apparently,
he spent some time there.
Like, he spent like a night there.
Yeah, like 3 months or some shit. And so before he goes off to war, he meets, I forget why he was in Louisville. That was where his base was or whatever before deployment. But he meets Daisy at the time, now Daisy Buchanan, who's married to Tom and is Nick Carraway's cousin. And they fall in love basically. And it's kind of like a fling, right? I think that they both feel that it's more than that. It's implied. Like they both kind of, it's a flame, right? It's something that they still kind of think about years later. But Gatsby, Daisy goes on to get married to Tom Buchanan, who we can talk about as a character, who I think is a really interesting character. But Gatsby essentially like builds the entire rest of his life around trying to impress her and get her back and find her. And in fact, it's implied, or I think it's directly stated. I think Jordan says this, and Jordan is kind of this third party who Daisy knows, who's a sort of semi-pro or pro golf player. And
she's kind of dating Nick for a while.
Yeah, she's like sort of dating Nick. It's kind of Nick's love interest. But that Gatsby bought the house that he bought specifically so he could stare across the sound or the bay at Daisy's house.
Which was reminiscent for me of Killing Commendatore, right?
Oh, well, I mean, that book is supposed to kind of be not a retelling, but it's related to the Great Gatsby.
I remember you guys talking about that
in our episode, which you should all go listen to. It's 3 hours.
You should. And I didn't. That went over my head because I hadn't read the Great Gatsby in so long. But now I understand it.
Well, I mean, it's still it's a thin. I mean, that's the connection.
No, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true.
What do you mean?
Well, in that book, and we don't have to go back into it, but in that book, there's a sort of mysterious rich guy who no one knows how they get his money, and there's kind of an everyman narrator who befriends him, and da-da-da-da-da-da.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, there's definitely more parallels there, yeah. Even though I think the main character in Commendatore has more of a plot of his own, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is a big difference.
That book's also 800 pages.
Yeah, it's so long. But yeah, what were we driving at there? We derailed it.
Well, we were starting to talk about Daisy as a character and how Gatsby and Daisy's relationship started, and kind of how that was kind of the founding kind of moment of the whole text, right? It's Daisy and Gatsby meeting when they were younger. Gatsby goes off to war, but still harbors a flame for Daisy, and vice versa, I think, we're supposed to infer. I mean, and she says,
for sure.
She says a few times.
Well, she had a breakdown on her wedding night with Tom.
Yes,
right.
that's
Like, because
right.
he was like, "Wait for me. Like, I'm coming back." Like, he was like, "I'm going to the war, but I'm coming back for you." And he manages to send some letter off to her. He finds out that she's like about to be wed to Tom, who I think he had seen maybe at some point before. Like,
I don't
it was
think
like the
so.
next
Well,
guy that went out with her.
Yeah.
After Gatsby. Either way, yeah. So he sent some letter like. I forget what it says. I don't know if you get the.
I think we actually don't know what it says because the scene, and I think this is Jordan talking to Nick, is she's drunk and
crying.
Yeah. I don't think it's her actual wedding night. I think it's the night before or something. And she has this letter, and she's so drunk she won't let go of it, and she goes into the tub and it just soaks and melts away, and we never know what the contents are, but we assume it's from Gatsby.
I'm pretty sure it said, "I love you, I'm Gatsby. I love you, I'm Gatsby. I love you, I'm Gatsby." 100 times.
Great letter. I would love to receive that.
Yeah. Straight to the point in a powerful way, I like. Yeah, and Daisy proceeds to do what she's become very capable of doing by the time, we see her in the like contemporary point of the book, which is like just press those feelings down and just enjoy more like the familiarity of, her world than like any genuine form of expression whatsoever.
Yeah. Daisy is kind of the, it's interesting because she's kind of this, and I think this speaks to the moment the book was written, where it was this kind of crossroads between post-war and pre-war. And, Daisy is kind of this fusion of the sort of like, flapper, like free kind of woman, but also a total wasp, total repress all emotions. Like, we cannot talk about this shit. Like put it away. You know what I mean? And I which is another connection to Mrs. Dalloway, because a lot of the characters in that book have a similar attitude.
And Daisy has a similar draw about her, like a similar lightness and ability, that I think most people kind of admire and feel made safe by, which is that the ability to like sort of disperse all negativity, with her just sort of reality warping presence. And everyone's like, I love that.
Yes.
But, there's a price to pay for that. And she's also married to Tom, who she'd rather stick with. And Tom's like a disturbing figure.
The
in
worst.
A lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom would also love Jordan Peterson, but for different reasons. He would mostly love Jordan Peterson for the racism and phrenology.
No, Tom would like no. Jordan Peterson's too light on that shit. Tom would like Charles Murray or something.
Yeah. Tom would go full bell curve.
Yes, 100%. IQ question and shit. Yeah, like that. That's Tom.
Yeah, he'd be reading that book
Tom is a
while he's like throwing a lacrosse ball with his best friend or something. It's total lacrosse, bro.
Just big, because he's an ex-athlete who's like panicking.
He's an ex-football player, right?
Yeah, he's kind of going to see it. He's getting a little fat, and he's starting to like get bored because he's not competing anymore. And so he's like trying to be an intellectual now,
right?
And he immediately latches onto like eugenics as like and as like the biggest like threat to society is like not keeping the genetic hygiene going.
Right. Well, which is
he's prefacing the Nazis. He's supposed to be, I think.
Yes, I think that. Well, not that Fitzgerald would have known about that even writing the book, but.
Oh, this. You know what? Actually, fuck. This is something that the fucking teacher in high school drilled into my head.
Right.
Fuck, and I'm just repeating it. God damn it.
Well, it's funny because there are a lot of like weird. Like reading it today, there are a lot of weird things. I'm like, oh, that's a World War II reference, or that's a fucking Nazi reference. And it's not because it couldn't be, because it was written 23, 24 years before World War II even started. Like for example, there's a mention of like on Meyer Wolfsheim's kind of place of business. It's like named like the Swastika Institute or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. What the fuck was that?
And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's a World War II thing, but it couldn't be, and it's not.
Well, that's just impressive then.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when did the the National Socialists, like when did they sort of start to come up before the Hitler himself was
not then. I mean, I guess
the 30s, right?
the party existed technically. I just looked it up. The party existed technically in the 20s. I don't know if the swastika was their logo from the beginning. I just don't know enough about this shit. But they didn't come into power until 33.
Interesting. Yeah, so I don't know what information Fitzgerald was getting, but he was getting early leaked information.
Or it just points to like how people like that were across society and across cultures already. That sort of way of thinking was manifesting, and it's not like it went away either. It's still here 100 years later.
Yeah, well, so like anti-Semitism is old, but like the specifically the swastikas, like
that just hit me, and that just really like jumped out. I mean, for obvious reasons, but I I'm sure there's some academic papers written about this, but I'm just genuinely curious about why that was something that Fitzgerald knew about and was in his mind, and like what was the sort of socio-cultural signification of the swastika in 1925.
Yeah,
maybe he was in a secret. Maybe he was in the Freemasons. And they just knew things. Who knows?
I mean, that's maybe. I don't know.
I actually read. I listened to about half of this book on audiobook, and Jake Gyllenhaal was reading it, which was really lovely.
Oh, that sounds sick!
Awesome.
Actually,
he's got a great voice. It was great.
Jake
and
was
I
reading
listened to at the point when he said swastika. I was reading it, or I was listening to it, and it was jarring to hear Jake Gyllenhaal say swastika out of nowhere.
Yeah. You didn't like that?
No.
Jake says that.
But he does have a great voice, so I got over it.
We should start a Twitter campaign to rename him Jake Swastika Gyllenhaal.
That'll go over very well.
Hey, Jake Gyllenhaal, if you're listening, come on the pod.
Yeah, that would be amazing. We'll read your favorite book, but you have to rebrand.
So yeah, I mean, I just think as a document of, I mean, it's so fascinating, all of that kind of stuff about the academic stuff about how this prefigures World War II or how it's related to the Nazis and whatnot. And I mean, you could even go as you could even talk about the portrayal of the Jewish characters, which is not great. they're it's classic. It's classic kind of hook-nosed swindlers. You know what I mean? So I think that aspect of reading this book was really interesting because I had to keep constantly reminding myself this book was written 20 years before World War II, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure how much was just in the air that maybe Fitzgerald was capable of picking up on just because he was now in the rarefied world of the super wealthy himself.
Well, and potentially because he was in Europe for the First World War, and who knows what he heard or saw or heard people say over there.
True,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Did he come back? So he was back in the States by the time he was writing Gatsby?
Yeah, World War I was over in like 1919 or something, I think.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, like we were originally talking about Daisy. I think Daisy was more of like a debutante, wasn't she? She was not super
in the classic
waspy,
term.
Right? She was Southern Belle.
You know, a cotillion
being courted.
Type shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we get all of that information about like the adolescent past of Gatsby and stuff through what is it like? He recounts it to Nick at some point, right?
He does, but we don't actually. I don't think we actually see the scene where he tells Nick this stuff. Nick just kind of reports to us. He told me this later, you know, at some point, or like, you know, there's a scene at the beginning where Nick is in the car with Gatsby when Gatsby's sort of asking him, you know, prepping him to be asked to invite him and Daisy to tea to kind of reunite them. But when he actually tells him his true kind of past, I feel like the actual moment that happens is a little bit vague, although I could just be misremembering.
And it's always when they're in New York City, right? Like everyone's confessionals and like shifts in behavior happen when they go down out of Long Island and into like the metropolis. That's where like the real like gritty truth of these people's, repressed desires and like what they do to make money and stuff is actually, that's what's being done there. And then they all go back to the eggs to like play act and
put it
LARP.
back down.
Yeah.
Well, and importantly, whenever they go to the city, and this is maybe opening a can of worms, I suppose, but they drive past the billboard of Mr. T.J. Eckelberg, which is sort of one of the most, arguably one of the most famous symbolic figures in all of American literature. I would argue. It's this billboard it's this fading billboard of an optometrist. I mean, if you live in New York City, or if you've ever been in New York City, on the subways, they have all these ads for doctors and plastic surgeons and whatever. It's sort of a
Dr. Zizmore.
Yeah, Dr. Zizmore. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's sort of a, early version of that, where it's a billboard of this optometrist, but it's faded and it's overlooking this, particularly desolate stretch of, land between Long Island and New York City. And they have to pass it every time they go into the city. So I think that's really interesting, Matt, that's kind of a, sort of a barrier between like, okay, now here's all the like horrible kind of the horrible truths of our lives come out once we pass this sort of line. And then once we go back to the other side, we kind of shut it down again.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost heavy-handed. That's one thing, where the symbolism there is like pretty much just like you're being bludgeoned with it, right?
Yeah.
You've got these, never closing eyes gazing at you as you pass through what's kind of described. I've been to Long Island, like, what I mean? Like, I know some of the regions that they're talking about in the book, even if they're called by something else. And I'm just so curious if it was like that, because they kind of describe it as just like this big stretch of like ash.
Yeah, he literally calls it like
garbage.
the ash wastes or something in the book, like the.
Yeah, like I just wonder if at some point it once again there was some like long stretch of Long Island that was just this weird like purgatorial fucking Dark Souls Lord of Cinder like kind of like stretch.
Well, and of course, like
sounds awesome.
The other location that's associated with the billboard is Wilson's garage, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of the hinge where all of the kind of worst impulses and sins and everything of all the characters in the book really kind of circles around. Not all the characters, but Tom and Daisy and Gatsby, really, because
almost all of them
because
really?
At the beginning of the book we hear that Tom has a mistress, essentially, and it turns out that she's the wife of his car mechanic, basically.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilson. And what's her name? I forget.
God damn it. Someone
find it.
I feel so bad. I feel like I'm not doing my job.
It's okay. Myrtle Wilson. So, they have this kind of relationship and they go meet up in the city, and Nick winds up at one of their parties early on in the book. And at the end of the book, spoilers, Daisy driving Gatsby's car back from a party where she fights with Tom and sort of confesses that she loves Gatsby now, and she wants to be with Gatsby. That we could talk we can talk about that later too, because that's a whole nother fucking can of worms. But she hits her. She hits Myrtle Wilson with the car and kills her and keeps going. And then of course Gatsby is blamed for it, and ultimately killed by Mr. Wilson.
Crazy Wilson.
Tom Wilson?
I don't think it's also Tom. It's not.
Wait, oh no. Yeah.
Too many Toms.
Yeah.
Bob?
I don't remember Mr. Wilson's name. But
isn't it revealed before that? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna like connect it back to the first thought, which is that this garage and this billboard are this kind of hinge, this like moral hinge, where on one side, as Matt was saying earlier, you kind of confess your truths and you can be kind of your authentic shitty self, and on the other side you have to repress all that. And it's this point where all of these critical moral decisions are made, whether it's Tom having the affair, or Daisy hitting Myrtle and not stopping, and what follows from that.
And
George
also,
Wilson.
George.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Didn't he have Myrtle like in a cage? Didn't
He
I
locked
read
her up
that?
in her room.
Okay.
Yeah, at
but
the end,
it was kind of insinuated that he was like,
he suspects she's having an affair, but he doesn't know who with.
okay.
Yeah.
And he's like, "We're gonna move. We're leaving." And he basically locks her in a room.
Right.
I thought that it was like a lot more devious than that. Like he was beating her too, or did I not read that correctly? I thought
mean,
it just came out that he was kind of like a pretty insane guy.
No, I think he's not supposed to be like he's not supposed to just be like completely unsympathetic, but or sympathetic, but he's not insane. He's just fucking finally like he's just this poor, like monetarily poor guy who is kind of also turning a blind eye to the pretty obvious fact that Tom Buchanan is just swooping in and like just taking Myrtle down to like a separate apartment that he bought for her and just fucking her there, and then just bringing her back and being like, "Can you also fix my car?" And
Yeah.
I think George is just the worm who turns. You know, he just finally like he snaps, and it's not something that is not understandable or unreasonable. It's like this dude's life sucks. He lives in the land of ash. He just is a car mechanic, and just these rich fucking people come.
He's just
And
covered
they
in
just cut
ash and soot.
He's dusty. I literally thought of him as dusty, and he's just filling your
Yeah.
gas up. And
Like a
then you
chimney
just-
sweep.
Yeah. And then you just go and you just cuck him in the city. And he was trying his level best to not like everyone else in the book, like not face the fundamental reality of his situation.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, and it is the moral hinge point because, he ends up killing Gatsby. But he ends up killing Gatsby because Gatsby ultimately still like takes on the sin and, the rap that is actually Daisy's, right?
Yeah.
He gets confused. George gets confused because he doesn't know who the fuck is like the person who's been hurting him this whole time. And the whole point is that like Tom and Daisy are kind of the people that have caused both things to occur. Tom cucking George with his wife, and then Daisy killing her. And both of these people get off scotch-free, and it's like, they just kind of literally are like, let's no longer speak of it. And, that's how they've been conducting themselves the whole time, really.
Which
like
is...
I was going to say, I almost feel like the moment that, Daisy and Tom slide back into their lives and they are off scot-free, that to me felt like their indoctrination into the East. Like they had to go through something like that and get off, and now they're finally there. And
baptized in blood.
Yeah.
No, I mean I think that's a really interesting point, Paul, because it's when we think about the sort of like uber wealthy, at least to me, one of the first things that I think about is like, basically like impunity from consequences or law or whatever. And that's sort of what happens to, Daisy and Tom, as they essentially get away with this, both the affair, as Matt was saying, and the hit and run. And then
it's like
George is kind of just left to deal with the consequences as a sort of, cipher for, the rest of America that's not part of these social classes.
Yeah. It is like if you can get to a point where you can have a level of impunity, then you are indoctrinated into that aspect of society. Once you can have the ability to have skeletons in your closet, it's fucked.
And then I think the where it comes back and sort of makes sense, I think that's a really good interpretation, because who gets the consequences ultimately? It's Gatsby, because George is convinced, based on some eyewitness testimony and also implicitly
Tom.
the suggestion of Tom that, hey, that car, I know who owns that car. It's Gatsby. And of course, George ultimately, sort of snaps and kills Gatsby and then himself. And so I think on your interpretation, Paul, it makes a lot of sense because, if the view is that Gatsby was never really of this world, he was never really kind of part of this social class, then it makes sense that he would be the one to kind of shoulder all the consequences. Not all of them, of course, George, right? But shoulder some of the consequences from these actions.
Because Gatsby's not capable of doing what George or what Tom and Daisy do, and neither is Nick. I don't know if it's an actual line attributed to Fitzgerald, but it's just the phrase "the rich are different." Just the reality warping effect of cash to create impunity, but also, the difference between the nouveau riche, right, and like old money, or people that have been living this way for generations, being that it's an expectation and that it's something they can sit with themselves and just sort of exist and not
just be
have
fine
any
with.
qualms and just be fine. Like, oh, I've got skeletons in your closet, and like the point is with people like that, generational wealth, it's like, look at all the cool skeletons I have.
It's like, yeah, it's like, I don't know. Do you guys watch Succession?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, it's very like Succession, right? Where it's like where the guy Kendall kills that.
Kendall.
It's the same thing, right? He runs someone over with a car.
Yeah. Right.
He's high on coke and drunk, and he runs someone over with a car, like a hired waiter or something from a party, and he runs him over with a car, and nothing happens basically.
Right. Mm-hmm. And the question is, are you so rich that you end up just being like, thank God, and then you're just chill and you can go like have another party, or does it fester with you like a good human being should feel?
Right.
Like, and that's ultimately what separates Gatsby from the Buchanans, because Gatsby can never hide the fact that he's just trying to like kiss his sweetheart on the lips, and
which is
so sentimental.
Kiss her on the lips.
Right.
It's just so sentimental.
He's such
and,
a
like,
sad
earnest.
boy.
Yeah, and it's like he doesn't get that they're like just circulating in a whole other world.
Well, and I think this is part of Fitzgerald's kind of argument with the book, or part of his point is that, and it's a subtle one, and it's tricky because in the book, Gatsby and even Nick, the narrator, even Nick says by the end he basically can't stand him. He's sort of just like, I hated everything he stood for, and da 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 da. But like, because he's presented as this character who's made a false life and he's hiding all of the truth about himself, when in reality, all of the rest of these people are doing at least that, if not worse. And I think it's sort of this kind of sleight of hand that Fitzgerald does, where he presents Gatsby as this fundamentally false, fundamentally kind of, delusional figure, when everyone else in the book is arguably much worse.
Yeah. What about Nick?
Yeah, I mean,
not Nick. Nick's a different story.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that Gatsby kind of comes across as sympathetic to me. I don't know how. I mean, he definitely has like character flaws, and he loves the Jordan Peterson type books, but he is just like out to fall in love again with the girl he loves.
He's sympathetic in a sort of like, I don't know, classically romantic kind of way, where, I mean, like, what I'll say about Gatsby for me is that, like, okay, yeah, we've all had that kind of feeling probably, right? Where there was like someone who you had a connection with and you were separated and you thought about them for a long time and da 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 da. But
right.
He takes it to a very dark place, like past the point of like where it's understandable or reasonable to me.
Yeah, and there's a passage earlier on. I wish I underlined it, but it came out that like after he saw Daisy after all these years, I think it was with Nick at that first meeting.
At Nick's house.
The fantasy was kind of like not shattered, but he had such like a built up idea of how it was going to go and what it was going to be like. And I think that also points to just how Gatsby manufactures almost everything in his life. You know, he manufactures the way he smiles and tilts his head and whatever, but he also manufactured this love story too. Even though I think, you know, they were in love and they did have a connection, but it did seem like that was part of his whole deal, was just manufacture everything about his life.
Yeah, I actually I don't know if this is the exact passage that you were thinking about, Paul, but I did underline some of that description from Nick, where he's talking about, you know, after they meet up at Nick's house, they go back to Gatsby's house, and I feel like this is so one of the other major kind of like symbols in the book of Gatsby's kind of dreams and sort of the general human kind of sense to idolize the past and make these kind of false narrative dreams for ourselves is the green light on Daisy's dock that Gatsby stares at night out on his veranda or whatever. Right. And so there's this passage on page, it's on my page 93. Daisy put her arm through his abruptly, but he seemed absorbed in what he had just said. Possibly it had occurred to him that the colossal significance of the light had now vanished forever. Compared to the great distance that had separated him from Daisy, it had seemed very near to her, almost touching her. It had seemed as close as a star to the moon. Now it was again a green light on a dock. His count of enchanted objects had diminished by one.
Yeah.
And I just, like, that was just so, like, that shit hit, man. Because that is Gatsby's life, is this kind of menagerie of memories and things that he imbues with meaning, and that's what he built his entire existence around. And it's that sort of classic experience of when the thing that you've wanted for so long becomes real, it can never be what you wanted. It can never measure up to what you had in your mind.
Yes.
Yeah, it's completely fetishized. Like, he fetishized the longing by looking out into this light. And yeah, once she's actually in his presence, just like, it's not as good as how nostalgic I felt staring across this dock as a sad boy. You know.
Right.
There's some other it's very close to that point, but just like the passage is that there must have been moments that even that afternoon when Daisy tumbled short of his dreams, not through her own fault, but because of the colossal vitality of his illusion. It had gone beyond her, beyond everything. He had thrown himself into it with such creative passion, adding to it all the time, decking it out with every bright feather that drifted his way, and no amount of fire or freshness can challenge what a man will store up in his ghostly heart. And like,
good.
So, like, and you know, Daisy happens to be the enchanted object in this instance, but obviously, she's also a bit of a stand-in for just like anything that you're willing to then do all this other somewhat inexcusable stuff for, and only an illusion can kind of propel you to commit those acts. And that's one of those things about, you know, America that drives people to be heinous and to be hideous and to, yeah.
I also think that one of the things that, you know, one of the other connections between this book and Mrs. Dalloway is that this book is also deeply about the process of aging and kind of like looking back at your life and kind of making sense of it, right? Like, is things that I missed, things that I still want, things that I hope to do. And most people, you know, I think are able to, I mean, ideally, maybe not most people, but ideally kind of strike a balance between all those things. And Gatsby just goes full on, just nostalgia is his entire identity.
You know what it's like? It's like, what if Peter Walsh was like an American GI instead?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
exactly,
and Dalloway was like the thing that he just built an entire edifice around.
Dude, that is, you know, the motto of the podcast.
Of course. Every
book is a sequel to the last book. This book is essentially an alternative life of Peter Walsh.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like the combo of like, I don't know, the ways in which you like cross the thresholds of different emotions about the characters. You know, like, I would hesitate to even call Daisy and Tom like purely evil, but like,
no, I don't think so.
You know, because you feel bad a little bit for Daisy knowing the intensity of Gatsby. You're like, fuck, she's about to meet this dude. He's really staked a lot, and he's being super weird.
Yeah.
Gatsby's toxic, dude.
He is toxic.
I mean, like genuinely, like I think that, but again, I think that's like Fitzgerald strikes a good balance because, like Paul said earlier, he's sympathetic in all these various ways, but like the scene where he kind of where it all comes out, right, where they've rented this hotel room in the city, and it's Tom and Daisy and Jordan and Gatsby and Nick. And like Gatsby basically just like belligerently like forces Daisy to tell Tom she doesn't love him. And I'm like, this sucks. Like this like is this feels really bad. Even if it's sort of true maybe, or Daisy's not happy with Tom, like this still sucks.
And she's not like, she's like already like, fuck, I don't know if I want to deal with all this. Like, you know, like whatever little genuine romance they had 5 years prior, it's just so fucking mutated now. And she's like, no,
I think mutated is a good word. It feels very mutated. Like, for sure, Daisy is going through her own issues with Tom in her own way, and then Gatsby is just there propelling her forward when she doesn't necessarily want to be propelled. I mean, maybe she did need to hear the truth, and maybe it's a good thing Gatsby did just sort of force it out of her, but it's also kind of unclear whether or not it is the truth because he's being so toxic and abrupt. And I also feel like he's like he can't stop the way he is. Like there's no stopping him.
Not at this point in his life.
No.
Well,
so you do end up feeling bad for Daisy because she's just in the way of his choices, and she's a part of his story.
True. And you know, the other key is that Daisy was kind of, very importantly, like his first taste of money again. Like, she's once again a rich person who, you know, represented something even when they met. Like, even right at the start of the quote-unquote, like, beautiful, pure, burgeoning relationship.
Well, he would have met her after his time with Dan Cody, right? Because he went with him when he was a kid. Didn't he run away from home to be with Dan Cody? And then he goes, and then I'm pretty sure, because he's like a kid, and he basically runs away from home to go on Dan Cody's yacht. Then Dan Cody dies. Then Gatsby goes to war.
He meets her. Oh yeah, and when he's at war, he's stationed there, and then
he meets her right before he deploys to Europe.
Right. So he might have been back in the sort of back with no money for a little bit, though.
Yeah, I mean, he says I was broke when I met Daisy. He says that a few times, like.
But still, you know,
that's
what I mean?
where
like,
Go ahead.
Oh no, just that she is like kind of a little bit like another version of Cody, like. It's like, oh, like, and her intoxicating qualities are those born of ease, you know. And
I think that's where the foundation should have crumbled immediately for Gatsby, but he went the completely opposite direction. He was like, you know, I met this girl and she won't accept me because I'm poor. Like, that should be a foundation for the relationship right there. Like, she doesn't want him because of his status. That's a big red flag.
But she did though. She did though. Like it. I mean, at least on Nick's telling of his sense of Gatsby is that they did. There was genuinely something there. I think. At least that's how I thought of.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there was, but she wouldn't, you know, long term accept him because they were of different status and he couldn't take care of her and stuff. I remember some passage talking about that. I think.
He did have to go make his bones. He knew he had to go become what he did become in his mind. That was the other tragedy, right? Is like he gets the biggest fucking house of all time and has huge parties, and it's like, yeah, that's not what it is. Yeah. That's not, you know, the grind set isn't getting you actually you know, the hot GF and the full happiness finally forever.
So here's another passage that I feel like sums up Gatsby's kind of mentality really well, and some of the themes of the book. So this is on 109 onto 1010 and 1010. Wow, 110. Right at the bottom of 110. This is Gatsby talking. And she doesn't understand, he said. She used to be able to understand. We'd sit for hours. He broke off and began to walk up and down the desolate path of fruit rinds and discarded favors and crushed flowers. I wouldn't ask too much of her, I ventured. You can't repeat the past. Can't repeat the past, he cried incredulously. Why, of course you can. He looked around him wildly, as if the past were lurking here in the shadow of his house, just out of the reach of his hand. I'm going to fix everything, just the way it was before, he said, nodding determinedly. She'll see. He talked a lot about the past, and I gathered that he wanted to recover something, some idea of himself, perhaps, that had gone into loving Daisy. His life had been confused and distorted since then, but if he could once return to a certain starting place and go over it all slowly, he could find out what that thing was. And, like, it's just... That's it, right? Like, you can't repeat the past. Well, yeah, I fucking can, and I'm going to. And it's like, that's his attitude. And I just think that it reminded me of, do you know, it's like a meme format now where it's like a person in the room with this, like with a psychiatrist. That line about, like, him looking around with the past as if the past was in his house.
Oh,
it's like the meme.
Room with
it's
you
like,
right
yeah,
now?
it's the psychiatrist being like, and this past, is it in the room with us right now?
I think nationally, right, there was sort of, it could be argued, something along the lines of that kind of conversation going on. You know, like, especially post the First World War, it's like, okay, there's been a breach, there's been a rupture, like, we've done something here. And there's a bunch of people like, yeah, I feel like it mixes with Dawei in this too. Like,
Oh, for sure.
You aren't getting the, you know, you aren't getting that back anymore.
Because that
Like,
was one of
just-
the other main themes of Mrs. Dalloway, right? Which is like, how
Right.
it was that tension between moving forward and just like, how do we get back to what it was before this?
Yes. But it's also funny because in this book, which I liked, it's that, like, the seed of destruction is already in Gatsby's, like, very personality as a kid, you know? He's already writing down the little notes about fucking poise and elocution lessons and dumbbell exercises and learning, you know, famous phrases to say at parties and stuff. Like, he's already been infected by something prior. And so, like, the past isn't even the thing that it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's like it's more like an infusion with the American dream that is innate within him. But it's also, I think, a big difference between Dalloway and Gatsby is that, like, there isn't really a feeling or hint of that in Dalloway because it is a more American thing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To just like bring yourself up by the bootstraps or whatever and get ahead, and like that sort of mentality is unique. For America.
It's like that. It's like that Faulkner quote, right? Like, the past isn't dead; it isn't even past.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
It's like that's the thing that sort of drives and governs our current behavior.
Yeah.
And you know, you meet Gatsby's dad at the end of the book.
Yes.
And he's just a super normal rural guy. I guess you're supposed to kind of, you know, Gatsby considered him sort of just a rube who
Right.
let life walk all over him. But, you know, it's just like, yeah, he seems like a nice guy who's like, but what I liked about that scene, even, you know, he's crying about his son's death and like such a good boy. But even then, he's still like in the big house and he's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Even the dad, the rural dad's like, damn, my son got all this? Fucking winner. My son's a winner. It's like, no,
my
he's not.
son.
He's bleeding. He got shot in his pool.
Yeah.
Right. He's dead, dude.
Yeah, he's actually dead.
Yeah, he should be deeply sad about the tomb he created for himself. But he
And
can't
it's like
just
he
can't
is,
help
but he's
himself.
not. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just it's pretty grim.
Well, and like his, you know, there's that scene where he shows. I can't find the section right now. I feel like I highlighted it, but when Nick is talking to Gatsby's dad, there's that scene where he shows him like the first photo that Gatsby sent him of the house, and again, it's this disconnect between sort of like nostalgia and imagining versus reality, because Nick talks about his Gatsby's father like almost being more proud of the picture than he is of the actual house. Like that the picture is the thing that really encapsulates for him what it was that his son became and what it was that his son did. And it's sort of, and then he whips out the schedule that he made when he was a kid. That's when we see that. And it's sort of like, you know, him being dead literally outside in the pool or whatever. I guess he's in the library or whatever by now on the table. That's less important than the image that the father had created about Gatsby in his own mind. Like the fact that he's dead, all that stuff can't crack the like nostalgic kind of imaginary that this man has created.
Which echoes back to the green light, I would say, right? It's a similar feeling of just like, you know, pure nostalgia, pure fixation, fetishization. I can't say it. Help me out. Fetishization. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
You said it. The reality is worse than our imagining of it. Always.
Yeah.
Of course. And, you know, I'm curious what you guys think, like, you know, I mean, the American dream, is it, as conceived in this book sort of loosely, is it just you'll be rich and happy if you grind it out?
I mean, I think it's pretty clearly not that, because no one in this book is happy and they're all rich.
Well, not I'm saying the false bill of goods or whatever. You know, what is promised. Obviously, we know that, you know, this book is not a celebration of that whatsoever.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just like bootstrap it up and grind, and it's the same shit we've been saying is still now extra. You know, diamond fists to the moon.
Right, right. I mean, I think that it is that, but it's more, it's like, obviously this is specifically singling out, right, this concept of the American dream and kind of being wealthy and being happy, and that's pretty like soundly rejected in the text. But I also just think in general, it's a text about memory, it's a text about nostalgia, it's a text about kind of like the things we think we want, whether it's money, like in this, the example that Fitzgerald is using is the American dream, but also like Gatsby thinks he wants Daisy, but like, does he really even, right? He prefers his nostalgic memory, his nostalgic, you know, sort of idealization of Daisy to the real thing in every case. And, you know, that even goes back, there's a scene towards the end of the book when Nick recounts a story Gatsby told him about when he went back to Louisville after he got back from the war and Daisy wasn't there anymore. And he's like sitting on her old house's front porch and he's like, this sucks now. And it's not what I remember and what I want.
Right, which is the downfall of I don't know what it would be called, like just over consciously trying to attain things that are going to be ruined by your desire for them in a super conscious way, like in a super like intentional way. I don't know, right? Like,
well, I think the word you used earlier, Matt, like a mutated way, though. That's like a big proponent of it. It's like maybe you can achieve a level of happiness if you do make a name for yourself, or, you know, get more money than you did when you were a poor kid. Like, yeah, you're probably a little bit happier, but with that mutated sense of desire for Daisy, he couldn't achieve a level of real happiness, and the mutated sense of nostalgia just inherent in his mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he just, you know. Also, maybe this is a huge reach, but I'm just throwing it out there. Preferring your idea of something and then having that bloat in significance to the point where there's no way to link it back to the real value of something. Can I link that idea to the stock market crash that's coming up?
Go off, King.
No, that's all I got. I mean, I'm just throwing that little nugget out there. I should have thought about it earlier and done.
Dogecoin.
Yes, thank you. Contemporary. Okay, did it.
Well, Carraway was he was interested in stocks, right? He did some stock stuff. So
he
is
did.
that
I think
more?
that is
he was a
important.
bond salesman, yeah.
I think that is important.
Which is kind of like, you know, the whole kind of conceit of somebody who trades in bonds is like you're trading on future hope, basically, right? And stocks in general. And, you know, that's Gatsby's whole life, is he's been trading on this future hope that he has, this ideal.
But what Gatsby's actually been doing in reality is bootlegging liquor.
Right. It's in a real sense, Gatsby's sort of sense of his future and his life is a bubble.
Right.
In the same way that the stock market is a bubble, right? It's going to pop eventually when it butts up against reality.
But also, it's like during the prohibition, right? So once again, you've just got yet another example of like everyone's doing this thing that is nominally prohibited, but it's just a facade, and like everyone's just doing it still. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yeah, I don't know.
Which I think is sort of like what, you know, Fitzgerald was telling us. Like, Gatsby, I actually think now that you mention it, that his being a bootlegger is kind of significant, because it's this thing that's prohibited, but everybody's doing it, right? But but also, like, that's what Daisy and Tom are doing, but it's only with their emotions, right? It's like, we you know, oh, it's, you know, whatever. If it's Tom, okay, cheating, adultery is prohibited, but everyone's doing it. I'm doing it, right? Like, all of and then Gatsby, of course, becomes the sort of like avatar of like just over emotional kind of truth telling, I guess, or whatever. And
but it's déclassé, you know. He does it, and everyone's kind of like a little bit just like, ugh,
cringe.
Like, must we?
Right.
Yeah, cringe.
Oh, cringe.
Yeah,
dude.
basically.
Gatsby's cringe as fuck.
Yeah.
But he is doing the thing that everybody else is doing, just more nakedly, both in his emotional sort of mental life.
Yes.
And in his actual economic life.
Yes. So it's just wrong, but it's just like he's just doing the wrongness wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Exactly, dude. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, with a book this short, and as I said before, carefully crafted, I would say. I don't think there's much in here that's not to be, you know, regarded as like super intentional and pretty.
So are you saying that your high school English teacher was correct to dissect every sentence?
Look. I don't think he's incorrect that you could. I think he's incorrect that he should have done that even to a bunch of English students in fucking high school.
So he's probably correct intellectually, but very wrong pedagogically.
Yes, and I think those are very different things.
Oh, definitely.
You know, there's a lot of geniuses who could not teach for shit.
That's a fact.
But yeah, I forget what I was saying before about like Daisy.
What do you guys think about? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I kind of lost the thread. I was just saying like everyone's kind of bad in equal measure, I would say, except probably for Nick. Nick's a little passive. Like he definitely sees stuff like the infidelity, and he says nothing. You know, like that's his cousin or whatever. You know, it's like he doesn't tell Daisy shit.
Well, but it's implied Daisy kind of already knows, right? Like when he first meets
you know what I mean?
up with
like,
them. Yeah, for sure.
Like, sure, you know, Jordan's gossiping like audibly in the same room with Daisy. Like,
that's what I was gonna ask, is what you guys thought about Jordan.
Tom's mistress.
Yeah.
I like Jordan.
Know. Jordan's kind of more of an enigma to me.
The symbolism for Caraway riding a train back to Minnesota is just him riding a train through his life, observing everything. Is that a stretch?
No, I don't think so.
No.
But yeah, I feel like he is. He's just kind of like
observing
everything that's happening in the social circle around him, and he's like very good at inaction. But he does kind of redeem himself towards the end.
Yeah, he's there at the funeral, and he's appropriately disgusted at a certain point with what he's seeing. And he's also sort of relatably kind of hesitant, I would say, to like get super involved in all of the drama.
Yes.
Like there are stretches of time that are quick in the actual like text of just like, and then a couple months went by and like I had lunch and I like worked at the fucking office in New York and like me and Jordan went on some dates. And it's just kind of breezed by. So there were stretches where he's just kind of being like what he is, which is like a semi young guy trying to make a start in like a new part of the country.
One of the things that
he's kind of like oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
He's just kind of like the like Dan Humphrey in Gossip Girl. Have you guys seen that?
No.
Who is that?
Well, if you guys haven't seen it, listeners, if you've seen it, it's a good metaphor.
I've watched some Gossip Girl, but I don't remember that person specifically.
He's the one that gets into the richer group.
And he's not.
He's like from Brooklyn, but he's
yeah.
actually still pretty wealthy.
Yeah.
And he kind of like, doesn't really want to mingle much with the group he's in, but he also doesn't do anything to like stop anything. So
yeah. One of the things that I loved about Nick's character was at the very end of the book, after Gatsby dies, when Nick is kind of like the only person who's interested in like tying up Gatsby's affairs and trying to contact people that he knew and his family, and like there's this whole, it's like, a few pages where he's talking about like he like imagining Gatsby speaking to him from his deathbed, being like, dude, you gotta tie this up for me, you have to find somebody, you have to find a friend, you have to find, and of course like Nick is the friend, right? Like Nick is the only person that Gatsby was like could plausibly be said to have been close to. But Nick is almost in denial about it. He's like, oh, maybe I'll call family, maybe I'll call Wolfsheim, maybe I'll call whoever, like anyone, for it to not be me, for me to not be this guy's friend.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting about Nick's character, that he's so concerned at the end when Gatsby's gone with like finding a way to just put it all behind him, right? Like, it wasn't me. I was not involved in this.
Do you think it was purely like to put the horror of it behind him, or do you think he was also just genuinely on some level like, this can't be what this dude's life amounted to, that like I am of 3 fucking intimate acquaintances that are now going to literally be the people who bury this man. It's like,
right.
I am not on the same level as this dude's dad, who's the only other person I feel qualified to be here, and everyone else is like, party's over, dude, he doesn't have booze and food, like fuck him. And then Wolfsheim's like, I love the kid, but I don't watch people get put under the ground no more.
Right.
And he gets that phone call, that really funny phone call that one time, doesn't
he? Oh,
he?
yeah.
Like,
where they're like, yeah.
They're like, Tommy's dead. I don't know, somebody must have tipped off the cops, and he's like, I'm actually Nick. And they're like, boo.
Yeah. That was great. That's a great scene.
Soupçon of the criminal, like, sort of
underworld
like stuff that he was doing.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think there was just so much about that the last chunk of the book where it's the post Gatsby's death, and I like the fact that the only other person to show up to the funeral besides his dad and Nick is this random guy that Nick saw in his
drunk guy
library, like in the first 20 pages of the book.
There's something about like he does the bit of foreshadowing with like the torn front of the car, because like someone like rips the hood of their car off right at the beginning of the book in the first party, I think,
leaving Gatsby's.
I was like just laughing thinking about like this definitely happened, like just people literally black out just driving like somewhat new cars like just all over the place,
totally.
Back to New York City from like deep Long Island. It's like so dangerous.
I mean, that
flying
shit still
at 40
happens,
miles
dude,
an hour.
guaranteed.
Of course. But yeah, when Myrtle finally gets killed, it's one of those like brief moments where it's just gross. It's just brutal.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple moments of violence, like Tom. Well, all of it happens to Myrtle, I guess. Tom, like, palms. He just does a quick hit and like breaks Myrtle's nose.
Yeah.
Because she kind and gets mouthy.
In the parlance of the book, not
later,
not what we would say.
And then she gets hit by the car, and like I remember this in high school. I was pretty grossed out. Like the description is like her breastplate is split, and one of her breasts is just like hanging by like a flap.
Yeah.
Like off of her chest.
It's very like suddenly graphic.
Really just Stephen King all of a sudden.
and it's, I mean, I wonder if because I don't have it in front of me, but I remember the line is something like, you know, it was ripped off so that the policeman didn't even have to check the heartbeat underneath. And I feel like that line is kind of like what happens to what Fitzgerald is doing to American society, or what he thinks he's doing, right? Like,
right.
I'm exposing all this shit, I'm ripping this shit off, and like, you don't even have to check. Like, this shit is fucked and corrupt and gross. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's no discussion to be had. Like, this is terrible.
And the heart isn't beating.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, you know, satire has a long history, and I don't know. Maybe the critical praise but somewhat cool public response to this book was a bit of just like, well, it's not that bad. Like, come on.
Right.
Like,
we don't suck. Like, we don't suck this much.
Yeah, you're being super negative right now, dude.
You're toxic. Dude. Fitzgerald's toxic. Dude, this is toxic. Look on the bright side.
Come on, old sport. Lighten up.
Come on, old sport. I mean,
the super affected old sport was so funny. I like Tom's just eventually like, stop saying that. You never said that.
Stop.
Yeah.
Don't call me old sport.
And like Fitzgerald, I like that Fitzgerald, and you know, I read The Last Tycoon too, but I don't remember much about it. You know,
which is unfinished, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like literally just ends with a bunch of notes about like some of the plot ideas he had. It's not finished. But I like that like Faulkner ended up this way too. You know, I like writing screenplays and just sort of being in Hollywood and just drinking.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's such an appropriate kind of trajectory, especially for someone like Fitzgerald who writes a book like this, to end up just sort of being like addicted to booze, in dire straits, needing money, and just like writing movies that like no one watches.
Yes.
Just for the new entertainment that's like becoming popularized.
I also this is totally shifting gears from that point, Matt. Sorry. But
that's fine.
I just because you mentioned, like, I feel like the book is really funny, too. Like, there's a lot of moments where I was fucking laughing. Like, just a line or, you know, a comment or whatever. And like, one of them that stuck out to me because I noticed something, it's like a paragraph. It was in Mrs. Dalloway, too. But there's a scene in Mrs. Dalloway, I can't remember the context, but someone's talking about a war, like the war in Armenia or something, or like all these terrible things happening to the Armenians. And then like there's just this one line that Wolf throws in at the end where it's like ... or was it the Azerbaijanis? And it's because it's this like performance of concern, right, for other people. And it just comes off as this like critique of like fucking rich shit libs. Right? It was just like, oh God, yes, I'm so concerned about all this stuff. It's in that country, right? Or like, I don't know. And there's a paragraph in here. I think this is from Gatsby and Nick's first car ride, where Gatsby is showing him his like military decorations and talking about it stuff. And this paragraph, I mean, maybe it's controversial because maybe you could read this earnestly, but I read it very satirically. It's on 66. In my edition. And this is, Gatsby had just told Nick that he had got this award from the government of Montenegro for some service he had done in the war or something. And this is Nick writing now. Little Montenegro, he lifted up the words and nodded at them with his smile. The smile comprehended Montenegro's troubled history and sympathized with the brave struggles of the Montenegrin people. It appreciated fully the chain of national circumstances which had elicited this tribute from Montenegro's warm little heart. My incredulity was submerged in fascination now. It was like skimming hastily through a dozen magazines. It's just like, if that doesn't like encapsulate the like liberal attitude, it's just like, oh, I read this New Yorker article about Montenegro. You know what I mean? Like it I just thought it was so funny.
And just the phrase "Little Montenegro."
Yeah.
Being, like,
Yeah.
Like repeated, just like clearly also just read, and just like the found phrase that he's just like, yeah, you're like, even Little Montenegro.
Right.
I didn't actually laugh that much, but after you reading that again, that is funny.
Yeah.
So
Go back and read it again and laugh. Do it right, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's satire, so it's supposed to be funny, I would say, but it's supposed to skirt that line a bit.
Right.
Where you're just like, yep.
Well, and I feel like there's just a lot of like funny, like morbid, but again, it's about aging, it's about like whatever. And I mean, another one, I'm just like flipping through my book now and seeing where I wrote lol, because that's where I write when things are funny. But this is kind of right before the big kind of fight between Gatsby and Tom, where he forces Daisy to confess his love. It's on 118. We had luncheon in the dining room, darkened too against the heat, and drank down nervous gaiety with the cold ale. What do we do with ourselves this afternoon? Cried Daisy. And the day after that, and the next 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that's it. That's part of what the book is about, right? Like, what do you do, as you age and you have these kind of, this nostalgia? Like, what do you do with it? Because
right.
These people are fucking 30, and it doesn't go away.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Tell me.
Well, and then right after that, Jordan says the most fluffy, strange response. That she says, "Don't be morbid." Morbid, Jordan said. Life starts all over again when it gets crisp in the fall.
I love that.
Like, don't worry about it. It'll just like the seasons will change.
It just resets.
You'll forget.
Yeah.
And just keep like having cocktails with me.
Right. Everything just kind of resets, right?
Yeah.
I'm not anti that sentiment to some level.
Yeah, no, same. I definitely feel like, I do that week to week sometimes.
Because, the final sort of like little parallel that I can think of is just, the seasons, it very much comports to the idea of like the 4 seasons being, the perpetual life cycles. So you got summer and all the partying and shit, and you're sort of segueing into fall and winter,
right?
And that's death, baby.
That's it. But it's also cyclical, right? Like,
yeah. I wonder where Gatsby fell on that kind of stuff.
Gatsby just wanted to freeze everything. Like, whether it's cyclical or linear, he just wanted to fucking freeze it in one moment.
Eternal summer. White boy summer.
Oh, God.
What'd you guys think of the fact that Gatsby, like, didn't use his pool the entire summer until the day he got shot?
I think that's an interesting question, because he mentions it, like, 3 times.
Yeah. He's like, please swim in my pool.
Like, can we please fucking go in the pool? And no one ever does. And he's like, I just want to go in the pool.
Maybe I'm looking into it too much, but I almost felt like him sitting at the pool was him finally, like, easing his mind and calm. Like, he wanted that. He wanted to actually sit down and enjoy what he has and what he built or whatever, but he, like, couldn't get himself to do it. And then when he finally does, he gets shot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like, one way of thinking about it is, like, here's my cringe, like, undergrad essay take, is that, like, he doesn't go in the pool because going in the pool is, it's like taking the leap, right? It's like, there's, like, the before you go in the pool and after you go in the pool. And if the pool is, like, cold reality, he doesn't want to go in. He thinks he does, but he never actually does it until he's dead.
Yeah.
I think it's more like he'd passed the threshold so hardcore through the, like, not only is he just disillusioned with Daisy and just like the botched, romantic gesture in the hotel that, showed her true allegiance, and then the fucking death and taking it. He was finally like, fuck it. Like, I actually can enjoy this thing I own without a million people also confirming that it's enjoyable.
Right.
Like, he does the parties and shit. He's like, please, anyone else? And like, when he was just showing Daisy all his shirts, the only time he like gave a shit that he had so many shirts, she's like throwing shirts around. She's like, the fabrics are so lovely.
And she starts crying.
Yeah.
Oh God, that was a tough scene.
And he was just like, yes, the only time I care about the shirts. Yeah, I mean, Daisy's terrible. Like that, like that's the other thing. Like, you can feel bad, and Gatsby's completely got this distorted sense of what's owed him and what he can do, and
right.
But it's like, Daisy also, like, vapid person.
Yeah.
But she's also just so encompassed by her upbringing in her life that has twisted her and, made her that way as well. Because I think she's similar to Gatsby.
Harsh.
What?
I think Vapid is a little harsh for Daisy.
Yeah, I mean, I see her as like a likable character in a lot of ways as well. Maybe in similar ways as Gatsby, having like a charismatic personality, like probably the life of the party. Does that make you a good person? No, but it made her more interesting and likable for me. But yeah, that moment where she's just smelling the shirts and crying, I was like, fucking.
Well, but then but I feel like that's a little ungenerous. She's not crying. She's not actually crying because the shirts are beautiful. She's crying because she knows what's going on, right? Like, she's crying because she knows, she gets the situation, that there's this complicated history with Gatsby, and that he's clearly trying to rekindle something, and she doesn't know what to do in the moment. Like, she's not crying because of the fucking shirts.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I don't think she's like just a materialist, so she feels enough fabrics and nice stuff and she starts weeping because it's so nice.
Right.
I get that. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I don't know, like, her, I'm not trying to demonize her. I maybe Vapid is harsh, but Gatsby, Tom, Daisy, regardless of what they could have been, right? That's not the point. That's like, or the point is that you can't undo the shit. They're all American grotesques now. They're all just gonna hurt each other, and they all suck.
Right.
I don't think you're supposed to be like, now they're all good people. As people our age, they've just been too distorted now.
Well, no, of course. And then of course, like at the end of the novel, like Daisy and Tom just try to kind of wash their hands of the whole thing by going on a fucking second honeymoon. You know what I mean? They just like leave, and it sucks.
Yeah,
it sucks.
It totally sucks.
Do you want to? Yeah, they're like, do you want to like retake our vows in the south of France? It's just like, just forget all this murder business.
And this whole, like, you said you were in love with someone else business. Like, let's just go on another honeymoon.
Right. It doesn't matter. Like, I cheated. Like, you are in love with somebody else. It's immaterial.
I killed someone.
Let's go to France.
I'm not going to tell you. Let's go to France. Yeah.
It's like a tomato.
Yeah.
You did adultery. I'm in love with someone else. Let's call the whole thing off.
You did.
It's going to be
more like, let's
on
keep it going.
Yeah, actually. Right. And that's the thing. Like, let's just keep the sham going, man.
Right.
It's better than not the sham. It's better than being poor.
Well, I think that's another point, like, about kind of the American elite, is that, like, anything is, like, giving up anything is worth keeping the facade. And Gatsby didn't believe that, right? Like, he didn't, he had a facade, but it was for something, right? And for these people, the facade is the end goal itself, right?
Yeah.
Like, the goal is the facade.
Yes. They don't even have the glimmering light that they're sort of gazing upon and moving towards in some fashion. There's nothing there.
Right, exactly.
And, like, yeah.
But the facade for them is, like, they're so in their world, and they have been their whole lives, that it isn't fun for them at all. They can't really experience how someone from, like, Gatsby's position could enjoy their lifestyle, but they're bored by it. But also, Gatsby doesn't even care about it.
They don't. I don't even think they know how to. They don't even. They don't even know how to. It's the fish and water thing. They don't even know they're in the water. Like that's all they know. Like that is their whole world. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like you remove that discomfort. That's no longer regarded as discomfort, and that in of itself is like disturbing to them.
Right.
You know. Yeah.
And that's why it's very, like when you think about a few years down the line from this book, the stock market crashing and people just like jumping off buildings because they didn't know how to deal with their lifestyle going away. It totally makes sense.
Yeah. There's a whole other ordeal coming.
Right.
Which is what we were saying before. That's what's so interesting is how it prefigures it a little bit and how it just like touches on all the stuff that does kind of lead to the next big cataclysm or next couple of like gut punches globally.
And then also World War II.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I was just flipping through and I just found another line where it jumped out to me. I was like, what the fuck? Where he talks about when George kills Gatsby and then kills himself. And he refers to it specifically using the word Holocaust. He says, and then the Holocaust was complete. And I'm just like, this is nuts. Like, there's so much, like, it's just one of those, I call it synchronicity, I guess. But, Jesus.
It's strange. Yeah, I remember that one too,
One final character, just to shift gears again, but just briefly, is just like, Tom and Daisy have a kid.
Yeah.
And that poor fucking kid is literally they're just like, hey, honey, and the kid's like, I love you, Mommy, and they're like, okay.
Go back with your nurse.
They're just like a nurse, like, just like this little ornament, you know. I don't know. Just a final little sad detail was just like, there's this kid like floating around the periphery of these people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually totally forgot about that. Of course. Because he's like barely in it. One thing I wanted to talk about, I really enjoyed the foreshadowing of Gatsby's house getting like darker and dustier and there's less people coming in. Mm-hmm. I love the scene where they're like looking around for cigarettes and there's just like, you know, an eighth of an inch of dust on anything because he's just been like so preoccupied with Daisy. He's just like, I don't even care about cleaning anymore. Fuck this place.
Right.
Let's just smoke cigarettes. But I did like how everything was just like physically becoming darker and like scarier, and it's all leading up to him dying, which I thought was just cool. Beautiful.
Look, man, their pursuit of wealth for its own sake, and it's just bad. It's bad. It's the rot. It's rot.
Yeah, very bad. And I just feel like there's at the end, there's this one line that, I mean, it's like, you know, whatever, but it speaks to that, what you were just talking about, Paul. This is like the second to last page, like 179. I spent my Saturday nights in New York because those gleaming, dazzling parties of his were with me so vividly that I could still hear the music and the laughter, faint and incessant, from the garden and the cars going up and down his drive. One night I did hear a material car there and saw its lights stop at his front steps. But I didn't investigate. Probably it was some final guest who had been away at the ends of the earth and didn't know that the party was over. And it's just like, yeah, that's like the general attitude of America at the time. Like, the party's fucking kind of over. Like, it's, you know, I know it's the 20s, there's still all this shit going on, but it's like, it's a turning point again, right?
Yeah, I mean, because what was the like motivation for the partying?
Right.
You know?
Distraction.
Yeah, it's like obviously
Nostalgia.
the other foot has to drop at some point. Literally, it's distraction and nostalgia. It's just all that stuff. It's like we just saw reality, you know, uprooted and blah blah blah. And and obviously, you know, there's these weird synchronicities and almost prescient sounding observations from Fitzgerald in the book that like are just so pertinent to World War II specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like that gathering energy that was, in America at least, just kind of being ignored by partying, and in England by just being stoic, I guess, was gathering and had to have been felt on some level. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, to me, thinking about the Roaring '20s is like, especially after reading this book again, is just like terrible way to think about it. It's more like a lull in a storm, like between storms. Like the World War I huge storm, and suddenly there's like this calm in in Europe and in America, and then we suddenly get worse aspects of the storm. Yeah, it feels like that. It's like it wasn't a happy time. It was like peaceful, quote unquote, but people were in a very strange, nostalgic mindset.
Yeah, like things were new, like flappers. And
it's
like,
demystifying this book.
Yes. Yeah. Basically. Yeah. By someone who was in it and had been disillusioned at a pretty early age himself. Like it's reportage a little bit. It feels like.
Definitely. If you've made it this far in the show, we love you. You're the best. And you get rewarded with the fan favorite segment.
We just read
did read another book.
We did it. We read another book. And now the only motivation that any of us have for reading other books is so we can justify talking about Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And so
my favorite book.
My favorite book. Which one's your favorite? I love The Goblet of Fire. It's my favorite one.
I love, oh my God, the Half-Blood Prince.
So this is the segment where we take all the characters or the main characters from the book we just read and place them into their appropriate Harry Potter houses. Often the most contentious segment on the show.
Yeah, kind of.
So who do we start with here? Jay Gatsby.
Let's go lesser first. And
Jordan.
Then we'll lead up to. Let's do Jordan.
Jordan Baker. Gryffindor.
Gryffindor? Ravenclaw.
I would say
Slytherin?
devious Gryffindor. I would say borderline Gryffindor and Slytherin.
So she's like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Wow.
She definitely. I could see either.
Yeah.
The girl who lived.
No, she's Slytherin.
Well, doesn't it come out that she's just like inherently a liar?
Yes, Nick talks about that.
Yeah.
That she's very dishonest.
Slytherin.
That she cheated in a golf tournament.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of along for the ride. She's just existing. She has no real like qualms with the behavior of anybody.
It's Jordan's world. We're just living in it.
Yeah. All right,
Slytherin.
Slytherin.
Definitively Slytherin.
Who's next, Matt?
Let's go with Tom Buchanan.
Tom.
No.
Hufflepuff.
Slytherin.
Maybe Slytherin.
I'm gonna guess.
What is? I need to be reminded again. What the fuck?
I mean, that's the whole thing. There's no strict delineations. It's a vibe. It's vibes.
I just think Tom. I could see Tom being in like 6-year-old in Hogwarts. His family's rich. He's gonna play Quidditch for the Slytherin team.
Yeah.
Why though? Like I'm gonna.
He's like racist Draco Malfoy, who's also probably racist.
I'm just saying bad Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
My immediate feeling about any of the hereditary aristocracy is that they're Hufflepuff.
That's fair.
It's just like bloodlines and social networks on like a super high level.
But that's also Slytherin. Is like all the Slytherins is all like who's your dad? What like
That's
how much
very,
money does
very
your dad
Slytherin.
have?
Yeah. And he is going the eugenics path.
Slytherin, dude. He's Slytherin.
Yeah. Okay, but
and Slytherin is all blonde hair, fucking eugenics.
Right. Aryan.
Yeah.
Daisy is Hufflepuff.
Daisy.
She's bad, and she's tortured about.
I feel like maybe we need to do a supplemental episode because I feel like you hate Daisy.
Why?
You said she's bad, and she said she's terrible.
I said she's bad Hufflepuff.
I think I agree with that.
Tom's Slytherin, which I guess I could qualify and say bad Slytherin. I know that we're not supposed to assume Slytherins are bad.
Yes.
But I'm saying Daisy is bad Hufflepuff. She doesn't know where her loyalties lie, and she's like like that's her crisis in the book.
That's true.
And otherwise, she's like a pretty just sort of like fluffy, cheerful person with like she's sad deep down, but she's kind of just trying to make everyone feel happy, I would say, in her way.
Yeah, that's fair.
And she's panicking about who she prior promised to be with.
That's true. Yeah,
she's struggling with her loyalty.
That's a good point.
She has loyalty to Tom, and it's misguided.
But also to Jay.
Also to Jay.
Though.
So yeah, she's Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nick Carraway
is
Hufflepuff. I'm gonna say Hufflepuff.
Why?
Because I also just feel like he's like temperamentally kind of drawl and is along for the ride. I think his main sticking point as a character is inaction. I think he does have some braver moments, maybe like when he's talking to Tom after Gatsby's dead, and he like kind of calls Tom out on what he maybe said to George. So he had like a few, like that was a brave moment. So I guess it's Gryffindor, but he's loyal to Gatsby though. I would say
he's waning Hufflepuff, rising Gryffindor.
I like that. Can we say that? Is that even allowed?
I just made that up just now.
I'm allowing it.
He's
Judge rules.
Or if you want to go Fantano ranking, he's soft Hufflepuff, leading into soft Gryffindor. He's right on the edge.
I don't know if I want to open the floodgates to a Fantano style of grading of hat sorting, but okay.
Or I guess it would be like strong Hufflepuff, soft Gryffindor.
I'm gonna call him soft Gryffindor then.
I'm gonna say soft Gryffindor too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say he's
strong Puff.
I would say he's more Gryffindor than Puff, but I totally get Puff.
Yeah. Okay. That's a nice, easy agree to disagree.
Yeah.
With not a lot of bile behind it. Is that just Jay now?
Yeah.
Jay.
Obvious Puff.
He's a Puff to the core.
Or is he Slytherin? Because it's all about him. It's all about him and his world and his delusions, and it's his desires are at the forefront of his mind at all times.
I think in the heat of the moment, I think the murder, the hit and run is the big incident that really shows that he's still Puff.
But if anything, my view of the hit and run is that's Gryffindor, because he takes the fall for Daisy.
Gryffindor.
He could tell Tom that actually Daisy was driving the car, not me, even though it was my car, and he doesn't. But that is also Puff, because he's doing it for loyalty and for a friend.
Yeah, right.
Or for a love. He doesn't just do it for a stranger.
Yeah, no, he wouldn't.
He wouldn't. But that's Slytherin. Because it's his desires, his wants.
But
I think I'm pointing him towards. But I mean, Snape was a Slytherin. His whole life was oriented around Harry's mom.
True facts. True facts.
Slytherins can love.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So is Gatsby like Snape?
I think I'm putting him in Slytherin. Yeah, I think he's just like he's really ambitious, and he's kind of devious in his dealings with bootlegging.
But he's not really ambitious. Like you said earlier, Paul, like once Daisy goes away, he doesn't give a fuck about any of that other shit.
Yeah, but he
was before her.
True.
Yeah, even as a kid, like writing that. Yeah, he had that ambitious.
Yeah, he's Slytherin.
Getting ahead mindset.
He's Slytherin.
She ended up being like he's Slytherin because she ended up being more of like just this like extra bauble.
He's Slytherin.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like she was a trophy to be won.
Yes.
That had the highest sentimental value of anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Easy clap.
Good work. Easy clap. Good work, everybody.
So now let's fucking give this book our scores, dude. So Paul's to go last, and Dib's not first. Matt.
Oh shit.
Okay. Fuck. All right.
And then
I want to give this book.
Yeah.
I want to give this book a 4.3.
4.30.
Yeah.
Where did it? I asked you this question last time, and you've had a week to think about it. What was it? What did you not like about this book? Like, where does it lose those points for you?
From being like near perfect, basically.
So you're agreeing with those critics that we disagreed with at the beginning. It's too good, therefore it loses points.
It's too good.
No. Yeah, I fuck. It's not that it's like too good. It is very slight though. And I was thinking about this in the reference to Dalloway, which just felt bigger.
Yeah.
And I would say that this book is trying to do, not something that has the same influences, like in the literary tradition that like Wolf was like playing off of and kind of like spurning and like, whatever. But, I don't know. I would say Fitzgerald's a lesser writer than she is. So yeah, it's this. I guess my only thing to say, and maybe it's disappointing, is just like I feel like it was also trying to achieve a similar scope of critique about a culture that Dalloway was doing, and this is going to have to be in reference to that book. And it was just pretty localized, and I think it was really fucking good, but there were still some like gaps that I would have felt were filled in even with like some small gesturings towards like other elements of what was going on socially and stuff like that. I don't know. That's the best I can do.
Yeah. All right, so then I got to go because Paul's to go last because it's his pick. So, I mean, I think, I'm like exactly where you are pretty much, Matt, on the score. I was like 4.4. Mm-hmm. I agree. I think Dalloway is a better book. I think Wolf is a better writer. I think that overall, I mean, we didn't really talk about the writing too much. Like, is it overwritten? Blah, blah. I don't really give a shit about. I feel like those conversations are kind of cringe. But I think that there's a reason this book is taught in high school and a book like Mrs. Dalloway isn't. I think that some of the symbolism stuff, it's kind of like, baby's first symbol. You know what I mean? It's like like the T.J. Eckelberg sign, like you said,
more straightforward.
A little straightforward, a little heavy-handed almost. Some of the other stuff. I mean, I do think that so like it doesn't not hit because of those things. Like, it doesn't diminish the book to me, really. But it's, like I said, there's a reason this is taught and some of these other books aren't. Because this is a way to get people thinking about, what does this mean? What does this obvious symbol mean? 13-year-old or what, a 14-year-old, or whatever. I do feel like I'll say that, like, reading this book for the first time since high school, it somehow still felt... Like I said earlier, like I couldn't tell you much about the plot if you really asked me, but it feels like it's in me already. Like, it's so fucking elemental and like primal to just being an American in a way.
Yeah.
And specifically maybe an American who cares about literature and art or whatever. It just has that kind of aura, I guess. And like that is hard to replicate. So I'm at a 4.4.
We have been sort of like ingesting these critiques in numerous forms, I would say, for a very long time.
Yeah.
What did you guys give Dalloway? What were your scores for Dalloway?
I have them right here. Matt gave it a 4.7, and I gave it a 4.63. So both higher than this, which I stand by.
I think I was at like a 3.9 or something.
You were at 3.89 exactly.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna give this one. I'm like right around where you guys are too. I think I'm like a 4.29.
Nice.
All right, buddy.
Love it.
Price is right. Price is right game. Yeah.
You're somehow more right than me. Just for being more granular.
But I think you guys basically nailed it. I mean, I think you're right that it feels like a book that you would read in high school because the symbolism elements are so like kind of cut and dry. I think I'm giving it a higher score than Dalloway, simply because I felt it more to be more of an enjoyable read, just in terms of the writing style.
Yeah.
Wolf's writing is difficult for me, and it like I think I talked about before, like gave me anxiety. So, I mean, this I liked how Fitzgerald can like be so critical and so satirical, while still giving you that sense of like I feel like I'm in this romantic world of the 20s. Like he's critical of it, but he's also encapsulating it beautifully, which I thought was like a nice line to ride.
Yes.
And I liked the way he would kind of spring things into the story, or spring like a really kind of abstract, beautiful passage seemingly out of nowhere, and it can kind of take you off guard, and I really liked that about his writing as well. But yeah, the symbolism elements do take it down a few notches because they are so blatant. And I think you're right, man. I think I would have wanted more, like more world building, I guess, more. Not necessarily more characters, but more themes, and there's something lacking I can't put my finger on, but
yeah, I guess the best way I could think to describe it is almost like cautiousness a bit. Like, I feel like this thing was maybe worked on for so long, and it was like the big third novel, and I don't know, like there's a sort of calculatedness to it,
and I think that's one
in some ways helps the themes again, but like it's it pulls its punches in certain places, in my opinion.
Well, I think that's one of the strengths of Dalloway in comparison to this novel, which is that that book, like you said, I think you said earlier, Matt, like that book just, it feels bigger, but it feels bigger because it's only addressing a day, right? And I feel like this book is trying to address so much, and it's over a longer time frame, and it feels, I mean, like, I mean, it's, I don't know how else to say it, but like it could have been longer. I do think it could have been longer.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been fine. So like if those critics that you mentioned earlier by it's too tidy meant that it's like too short, then I kind of agree with that. Like everything just kind of happens in an order, and it's great. Everything that happens is great, and the writing is great, all that. But it feels small compared to its ambitions in a way, compared to when you're comparing it to Dalloway.
Yeah, and I don't mean to like have this circle that book so specifically. It's
hard
just what
not
I read prior, and like it feels like similar in its subject. But like I do like the whole idea of like an American sort of vivisection of that time period being also kind of a fucking soap opera and a melodrama. It feels appropriate.
Gossip
but Anna Karenina, that shit's a soap opera basically.
It's like 900 pages.
I know, it's big. Yeah, this thing doesn't have to be huge, but yeah, we've all kind of said it in different ways. Like
I'm officially downgrading my score to exactly Matt's score, 4.3.
Yeah, that's right, because I'm perfect. I've fucking crushed it.
I think that's right. I mean, we're all right there, basically.
Yeah,
just
basically.
To reiterate again, but maybe say in a different way, I think one thing that maybe I should boost my Dalloway score, I don't know. But I think that Wolf had
You can.
Like,
it's legal.
The timidity of Fitzgerald, like you were talking about, Matt, he's kind of like pulling his punches and almost feels safe and maybe too maybe I am agreeing with those critics a little bit, because it does feel, that calculatedness feels a little bit stringent. But Wolf's book felt more like a very confident, swift flow of artistic expression. Like she had her voice, she knew what she wanted to say, and it just felt like it flowed even though it was difficult for me to read. But like you know what I'm trying to say? Like it almost like she felt more confident in her writing. Yeah, even though I mean, it's hard to say that Fitzgerald pulled any punches because there's obviously a huge gruesome death scene too, so that's a big punch. But
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, either way, we're all in the fucking mid 4s. It's not like this book was bad. You know, there's a lot, and the themes seem to be perennial. At least they've lasted hundreds of years or 100 years. But like, yeah, I don't know.
If you haven't read it since high school, read it again. It's better than it's better than you remember. I think we can all agree that that's basically a guarantee. Unless you're a douchebag. Unless you're a fucking douchebag who this was your favorite book since high school and you've never read another book, then fuck you. But thank you for listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
And also if you think Tyler Durden is Great Gatsby.
Yeah, no.
Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you, dude. But also, did you ever see they were in the same room together, of course. It doesn't even hold up.
All right, damn it.
Sorry, Palenwick.
All right, well, that was The Great Gatsby.
And we are Spinecrackers.
Go to our YouTube channel, go to our Patreon, go to our Instagram and Twitter. It's just Spinecrackers on all of those.
Oh, we didn't say our names.
Gabe.
Matt.
Paul.
Signing off.
There.
Bye-bye.